my goal.
Can I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Chair will bring to order the Monday, November 14th, 2016 Single Family Design Board. Is anyone in the audience wishing to address the board on any item not on today's agenda? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for actions on approval of our minutes for our October 31st, 2016 meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Let's go through that. If there are any comments or corrections, item number 1, 210 La Vista Grande. Item number 2, 246 San Clemente. Item number 3, 1206 Fiscano Road.
1207.
Excuse me, 1207, I'm sorry. 1120 Lunita Plaza. Item number 5, 1531 West Valerio Street. Item 6, 929 Alston Road. Item number 7, 626 Sunrise Vista Way. And item number 8, 1527 Dover Road. Hearing no corrections or questions, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Katie, let's go to November 7th, consent calendar, please.
The minutes for the November 7th consent calendar are as follows. Item A, 129 Oliver Road was continued indefinitely to the full board with comments to provide new lighting fixtures incorporating shielding that are no higher than 18 inches from finished grade and include their respective spec sheets. Comment number 2, if the applicant wishes to keep the berm, the project can be reviewed at the consent level. If the applicant wishes to eliminate the berm, the project will be reviewed by the full board. Item B, 210 La Vista Grande received final approval as submitted. Item C, 1630 Mira Vista Avenue received final approval of review after final details as submitted. Item D, 821 Deer Path Road received final approval as submitted of review after final changes. Item E, 203 Santa Anita Road received project design approval and final approval with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code with the condition for the applicant to consult an arborist regarding the protection of the oak tree near the site construction and submit any arborist report instructions for tree protection. Item F, 2446 Garden Street received project design approval and final approval with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code with the following conditions. 1, the rock pattern on the gate will match the existing retaining wall. 2, the gate color will be a black finish. 3, there was no lighting proposed, therefore there will be no lighting on the gate. And 4, the top of the pilasters will be flat.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make.
Oops, got a tie.
Go ahead.
Let's go to Denise first.
I'll
Do I have a
make that
second?
motion.
Okay, Lisa second. Any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Let's go to consent calendar for this morning, November 14th. Katie.
The minutes for the November 14th consent calendar agenda are as follows. Item A, 1240 West Mitchell-Torrena Street was continued indefinitely to consent review with comments to provide a specification sheet of the garage door, include lighting details on the plans, reconsider the Costa Rica butterfly vine plantings, and revise the landscape plan to show the maximum 6 to 8 oak trees allowed per fire department and the single family design board's recommendation. Item B, 1211 Sarah Vista Lane received final approval as submitted. Item C, 566 Arroyo Avenue received final approval as submitted with the condition to attach structural details. Item D, 39 Langloh Terrace received final approval as submitted. Item E, 2414 Santa Barbara Street, received final approval as submitted. Item F, 1595 La Vista del Oceano, received project design approval with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met, as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code, with the conditions to revise the submitted materials to include Plan Sheet 1 of the original plans marked with the 5-foot and 3-foot section of the fence, noting the appropriate size and location to scale, and include the drawings that the fence will be black wrought iron material. Item G, 1712 Anacapa Street, received project design approval and final approval with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met, as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code. And item H, 1515 Markard Terrace, received project design approval and final approval with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met, as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments, questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I wondered if you could refresh my memory on item C, and if that 99%, I just can't remember, and it says
What's this,
it's
Arroyo?
566 Arroyo
Yeah, you
Avenue.
recall that's the house that was a U shape, and they were filling in the back little piece of the U. And it's an old house, it's been there forever, and we allowed them to put that extra square footage in the little face of the U.
Okay, thank you.
One thing that I wanted to bring to people's attention, just as a heads up, we had the project from Mitchell-Torrena Street, West Mitchell-Torrena Street, and it was interesting. We had moved that to consent for final because I don't think there were a lot of questions or a lot of issues that we had as the full board, but it turned out it had not gone to the fire department yet. They reviewed it apparently this week or just a short time ago and indicated that the requirement that normally is put on projects of replacing when you remove an oak tree, you have to replace it, what is it, 3 to 1?
3 to 1.
3 to 1. And that whole hillside, I don't know if you all recall, that project's on a steep hillside full of oak trees. And so at 3 to 1, for the amount of oak trees they had to pull out, not only on the site, but on within the city's right-of-way easement, there was like 9 oaks. So that was 27 oaks to try to stuff on this site.
40.
40. And it was like we looked at it,
It's like
Denise looked at it and said, how could you even possibly plant that many? Because they're going to grow as oak trees. So it turns out we apparently have discretion over that rule.
Over the fire department.
Over the fire
The fire
department.
department is the one that said you can't do that. It's going
Can't
to
do
create
it.
a fire ladder.
Exactly, yeah, it's going to create this big fire thing. So that's why we sent the applicant back to the drawing board to say, come back and show us less oak trees, because it just doesn't make any
It
sense.
didn't make any sense.
So, anyway, that was
Typical of some kind of conflict that we have here between what the mitigation standards and what the fire department's going to approve. And so we do have the last say, evidently, on that.
That's good to have the vehicle to.
yeah.
Yeah,
so,
to check and balance that, because that would have been
yeah.
disastrous.
So it's just something to be aware of. Anyway, so we have a first and second, the motion to the approval of the minutes. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Announcements. Katie.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to announce the following changes to the agenda. Item 3, 1106 Crestline Drive was postponed at the applicant's request. And item 7, 406 North Ontario Road was also postponed at the applicant's request. So the dinner break that we had scheduled for today, if the rest of the board agrees, we will just go ahead and push through the dinner break, and hopefully we can move up item
4.
I think it was,
Well, 4, 5.
it's 606, yes, we can move up 606 Sunrise Vista to 415. If the applicant arrives, I advised him to come earlier than he was scheduled. And then we have the same applicant for item 5 and 6, so he can just present back to back if we choose to.
Now,
go
on
about.
item number 5, we did receive some pre-meeting correspondence from the neighbors. So will that affect their ability to get here or whatever?
No, it should
Okay.
be still around the same time for that item.
So we got a 15-minute window to work with.
Right.
Okay. All right. And then we had an email from one of our members earlier today about stepping down on an item. Does that still hold true?
Yeah, I did. It's item number 2.
Okay. So you'll be stepping down, and that's because.
Well, because I live nearby.
Okay. Every time any of us step down, you need to either indicate that it's within your 300 foot radius from your home, which you're required to step down, or you have some other major reason. So just remember when you do that, so it gets in the record of why you stepped down. Okay. Any other announcements, Katie?
It's not very far.
Well, remember when you were put onto this board, that's the document they give you. So 300 feet is the little diagram they provide each one of us. Anything else?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other announcements from the full board? No. No? Okay. All right. Then let's move to our first item, 453 Los Altos Road. Excuse me. This is here for a second concept review. Action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. Project was last reviewed on September 19th, 2016 at the consent calendar. Hi. If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Patty,
Whoops.
This is all being recorded. So
Okay.
speaking on microphones.
Patty Firestone.
Charlie Firestone.
Okay, welcome. Let's see. This was continued indefinitely to the full board. Do we have any other background, Katie? on this one?
No, Mr. Chair. This item came before the consent agenda, and the reviewers at the time thought if they wanted to keep the current proposed configuration of the deck, that it should be forwarded to the full board for review. So this is really
Okay.
more
and-
like the first time it's been reviewed.
All right. And who was the reviewers? You guys remember this project?
I don't know. Was it me?
Yes. You were
Let me
part
have a
of
look.
it? I think
And
Mr. Miller, I think, was part of it.
All right.
It was
so-
not a big
It's
memorable
not a
project.
big-
I don't want to get into
It's not a big
Or was it
project.
just-
It was a test.
Why did we do that?
But I was on. I was on with Mr.
She can
Mosquito,
explain.
so I have not been
Maybe
on
you
consent.
I'll tell you.
Okay, all right.
The-
So we'll that's fine. Let's stop there. Get into a memory quest.
So, right.
Why don't we have you go ahead and tell us what you're doing and why you're here, and then we'll kind of talk about it. Okay.
So in these plans, the existing deck is in the darker gray. We want to expand the deck to be on 3 sides of the house. We did not have a letter from the neighbor, which is, I'm not going to say right or left, on this side where the hot tub is. So we included the letter from the neighbor. The big question at the time was they were considering a second-story deck, but this is just on a slope, so you cannot stand up underneath this part of the deck. It is off the ground, but it's maybe, I can't remember, it's maybe 5 feet. There are the pictures. 5 feet off the deck. And so if, and you know the regulations better than I, but if it's a second-story deck, it needs to be further away from the property line than if it's a main story deck. So the way it's drawn up is to be 10 feet from the property line at its closest, and that is in compliance if it's on a single-story deck. Evidently has to be 15 feet if it's a second-story deck. So what we submitted was, with these lines showing you exactly how far it is from the property, photos to show how high it is off the ground, and
Letter from the neighbor
letter from the neighbor.
saying that they are
I
fine
do
with it.
remember now. Thank you.
So it's that neighborhood. This.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's this.
Okay.
This
and,
side,
And
there's plenty.
the elevations look
That-
like.
Which relates to my
That's the plan. So do you have an elevation? So these are heavy timber members, and that's a cable rail.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And this is what's that? Is that the fence at the property line?
No, you know what? This is a side yard that's up with a retaining wall.
So is that a retaining wall or a fence? that's
It's a
further back?
retaining wall, and it will have the cables also.
But only out to the 10 feet from the property line.
Yes.
So what is this? Existing fence. Where is it?
Well, that's probably the existing retaining wall right here.
Oh, that's, okay.
That's the
what
existing
that is.
retaining wall. Because this is at a higher level.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Thank you. Okay, and then,
And then you can see here how it sits on the.
okay. And
Hairpin.
what's this? All right.
Excuse me.
And do we have a section through this? These are trellis members?
It does go up higher. Let's see. Over this, there is a.
Let's see if, oh, okay.
Shade.
They show an element over here.
It's.
So is that going to
Kind
be
of a-
fully covered?
It is now. That's existing,
Okay.
but it won't be over the hot tub.
So what's existing, that's,
It's shaded.
It's only shaded over this bedroom here.
okay, wait a minute, let me grab
This-
this photograph here.
Is
So-
not- This is the the gray is the existing.
Okay, so that's shaded,
That's-
that
yes.
piece is right there.
Yes.
Okay, so that goes all the way along
Mm-hmm.
here, so that's existing, that's not changing.
The
These timbers
the
and
timbers
those-
don't change, but the shading is only over these two.
So it's not going to be, so these are kind of freestanding?
Yes, right now we have awning over maybe these two.
Right.
Let's see.
Showing our photographs?
You know that not awning, canvas, and that's been there since they built the house. This sort of canvas that just slides by hand on. It's really. Anyway,
Okay, yeah, here's a better picture. So there's actually horizontal members here. Those are remaining? Right there?
yes.
So I should see a line here.
Oh, okay.
They should see that these are tied together. That isn't- So the drawing isn't quite as accurate as it should be.
Okay.
Okay? Down to here, and it appears that that one goes to here, and as you said, these then are shaded. Okay, and so this frame that you're showing in the photograph just stays, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything else? No?
No, there's a-
Okay. All right, we did get one piece of public correspondence that the applicant has provided us from the neighbor. They have no objection to this plan. We understand the deck was considered elevated 10 feet, so they're aware of the 10 and 15 feet. We do not
That's
object
this.
to that requirement. Okay. So, Katie, do we have any other correspondence?
No further comments.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Okay, seeing none, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions? Lisa, questions?
I have one for the consent board members, what that is. What about this made you think that we should take a closer look?
Yeah, I can tell you. I didn't understand at the time, which since I've had clarification, that that even though it's sloping down, it's still considered a first-story deck or a ground plane deck. And I think our concern was that because it sloped down, it seemed like a second-story deck, and should it comply to the 15 feet? So so that was why. But since then, I've asked the question on one of my own projects and found out that if it is in fact coming straight out from the ground plane, and yet it slopes, it's still considered a one-story deck.
And that's a zoning call?
That is a Katie call. I'm pointing at her, no.
The 15 foot is in the SFDB guidelines,
That's
so
what I was
it's,
just looking for.
yes, I can pull it up.
But
for you.
it applies to second level.
Right,
decks.
a
Second level
story
deck.
And on a first level, it doesn't matter what the distance is from the level of the deck to the ground.
Correct.
Correct? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's what was stumping us, I
Yeah,
think.
see here, if these drawings are drawn correctly, it appears that the the largest piece is 7.5 or 8 feet above grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
But isn't the intention of that regulation that if it's ground level, that's one thing, but if it's high, it's not on ground level?
Well, but what I was just looking for is that page. I don't
It
think.
doesn't give any measurement
Doesn't give any
from
measurement.
ground plane, so that's the thing, it's not, that's why it wasn't clear to me,
I forgot
quite
what
frankly.
page that's on. Anyway. So I think that's the issue. The other question I have, I'd like to go to this on clear. So this is existing, that's existing. This new piece is here. Let's see. Okay, put that up here. First floor patios and decks inside setback lines, second story decks and balconies in front property lines. Second story decks and balconies on the side or rear of a house more than 15 feet from the neighbor's property line. Second story decks and balconies on the side or rear house less than 15 feet. Two-story decks and second story decks, balconies. So it doesn't talk anything about one story. So it all applies to second story. Okay, that's page 69-N. Okay, thanks, Katie.
And I think the intention is, of course, that it's about the neighbor's privacy.
Right.
And is the neighbor's privacy going to be compromised by this deck? And in this case, the neighbor is fine with it.
And
So-
we have bamboo,
And there's a
a
screen.
thick screen of bamboo.
So,
And I think the size of this deck also was a trigger for me to bring it to the full board.
Yeah.
yeah, so this square footage, what are we adding in our description?
Well, 443 plus.
443 square feet of wood deck? Is that existing, or is that
It's a
new?
proposal for 659 square foot expansion of the existing.
So
that's in addition, 600 is in addition to the 400?
that's
So
1102.
it's like 1,000 total?
Yeah, that,
I think something to take into consideration here is that there's no usable property because of the slope, so it's all they've got, to be able to go outside and enjoy the outdoors. On a sloped, parcel like this, where you can't even, it's too steep. What are you going to do? You have to have some outdoor area. So that's also
So continuing questions. So this is the hot tub
Yes.
or spa. That's going to sit down. Is that level with the top of the deck? Is that
I wanted it a few inches.
okay?
as
So it's
older
going to be
people just.
okay. And
But-
and so this is all new deck. This is all new deck.
And this is kitchen. So
Okay. And what is this right here?
those are the
deck.
steps.
So that steps down
Steps
to
down,
reach
and
back.
this is then that would be a grade of
Okay.
the ground.
And these are not a traditional riser and tread because these appear to be 2-foot treads or less than 2 feet treads. Okay. And then we're replacing all of these verticals with new cable rail. And do we have an idea of what color you're going to do all this in? You're going to restain it these colors?
Well,
or
the
what?
cables will be stainless.
Right.
And the verticals, I think we were going to have wood because we've got these as wood, and so then
Right.
all the verticals
So,
will be wood.
so are
and
they
we-
going to remain that color or something
Yes,
close to that color?
because we've got
Okay.
wood, that
Okay.
dark color all over the house.
Okay, all right. So we've got the color, and are you changing any lighting out on the deck or on the house on this side?
No, there's existing one light here, one here, one here,
Okay.
one here, one here.
Okay, and there's no lighting around other than maybe what's in the spot itself? And what does the underside of this look like? Oops. I have a picture somewhere. Let's see. So S10. Owner supplied jacuzzi, recessed deck. So we're going to see the underside of this as it sits in here somewhere, somehow. It's actually going to sit like that.
Yes.
Okay. So there's going to be, I'm assuming, some kind of concrete platform to have it sit on?
Yes.
Where it is?
I
What
think he's got that
Must be back in-
Yeah, he doesn't have it drawn, but
on
Yeah, I
the
think so.
last
How does-
page.
'cause it-
Anyway, I thought that he had some.
Oh, the jacuzzi's on the deck. It's not under it.
not under it.
It's-
Okay, so it's sitting up on top of your deck.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Well,
No,
it's
supposed
Because it's
to-
not
It'll
drawn
be-
that way.
It's not drawn on here, back here.
No.
Sitting on
Yeah,
concrete.
so,
platforms.
from what I'm reading from these
That would be
documents,
hard to do.
it's
Yeah.
sitting up like this,
it'll be
up on
just
top of the deck.
Well, that wasn't what it's supposed to do. We're
Okay,
obviously not
so
the
the reason, I'm asking that question is if you sink it down into here, then that's got to sit on something, because my recollection of spas is they're not
Yeah.
they're not
Correct.
8 feet deep, so it's going to have to sit on something.
Right.
Okay, because I'm expecting it's going to be 3 or 4 feet deep, and it's going to
Caissons.
carry a lot of water. So I'm expecting somebody's going to have to design you a platform for it to sit on.
Yes.
Back to your structural.
So none of this is for that. This is all. It's
That's
so
for the
small.
That's
the
for the
last
decks
page.
themselves, right?
I think so. I thought that might have
Well, it's got the openings there, but it doesn't really show anything.
those were the. But,
Well, it's not on the drawing, so
Okay.
you need to talk to your folks
Okay.
about getting there.
Sure it's not like that?
No, I don't see
And-
anything.
Yeah, it's sitting on
That's
top.
just the footing.
In this set.
That's that, and I don't see any platform.
It's a pretty big deal to have to do
So
that
you need to, you
platform.
probably need to talk to somebody.
all right.
Okay,
Make sure we do that.
so let's go, any more questions? Now we kind of figured out
That's
what's
the
going on.
There's opening.
Any more questions?
It
Yeah.
does show an
Yes.
opening.
If I may
Yeah.
ask the applicant, so I understand that one of your neighbors on this side wrote the letter and you've talked to them. What about the other neighbor?
It's very far from the other.
Okay.
it borders on the
If you look at
right
the-
where he
If
sat.
you look at the site,
property.
Bernie, the road goes all the way around
Yeah,
the
we-
house, so all the other neighbors are up high and
Way
across
up
the
high.
road.
neighbor would
Okay, I
Would
just
be
wanted to
impacted.
clarify.
And we
that.
have screening landscape screening all the way around. And there's screening between the two.
Okay,
Fred, I was going to
Yeah.
say, if you look at the structural, it does show an opening.
yeah, I know, see the opening, but it doesn't show.
Doesn't
the
I'm
show
I'm
the-
making an
Foundation.
assumption. Somebody's got to figure that out.
yeah, and that, yeah.
And we're paying for a structural engineer to.
Okay,
do
they'll
something.
get to it. You just
It
need
looks
to
like
make sure
you
it
have
gets on
some
the drawing.
drawings from them. I have a question. Because this is in high fire, shouldn't this be skirted, this deck? It can't be left open.
Well, no, it can be left open if it's all heavy timber construction.
I didn't think so,
No,
really?
it's heavy timber construction, but all the members have to be 4 inches at minimum in thickness. So you can have 4 by 12s, 4 by 10s.
I thought it was across the board, you had to skirt it no matter
No.
what.
No.
If you don't use heavy timber, then you have to skirt it.
Then, yeah, if you don't do, and then you have to skirt the whole
Okay,
thing.
okay, thanks.
And can the skirt be set back?
Well, no, let's
no.
not,
Do
let's
it.
not get you confused.
Okay.
The
If you-
way that your drawings now show, these are all heavy timber. So you
Okay.
can draw, you can put it in like this. So.
Okay.
It would be nice, though, to probably plant
Well,
something.
the reason I ask is there, under the
People like to
existing, there is a stucco covering
Yeah,
underneath.
that's back, but that's existing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a building code issue, not necessarily a design issue, unless we decide that,
It has related, I think it has related to
aesthetic problem.
the fire,
fire
fire
rating.
rating, not necessarily.
because you're in a high fire
Well,
zone.
I think it's also aesthetic, too, in a way, because nobody wants to be staring underneath the deck either. I mean, it's nice if there's some plantings there to hide that, you know.
So,
There is.
so I guess one of the comment then, going to comments, Denise, is whether or not you feel there needs to be some supplemental landscaping,
Yeah, I
et cetera.
would.
So that's kind of your comment. Are there other comments now at this point?
If we're careful about what we recommend, being that you're in the high fire zone, we don't want to add fuel to the,
Fuel to the fire.
I didn't want to say it.
Okay, and if you look at the current deck under the area we're talking about, the remains, you see this photograph, there appears to be is that a trumpet vine maybe?
Yes.
Okay, that there appears to be a trumpet vine that trails the whole length of the whole deck now.
existing.
See that photograph? And so, is that appropriate? Not appropriate? If you look here, this is from the south, looking right back at the deck. You see this trumpet vine going the whole way. So it's probably planted in a couple of places. If
Yes.
not.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Cool.
getting
That's good.
irrigated.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
have a couple of comments
Yes.
for the board. On the one hand, I really appreciate the applicants are adding on usable areas of a relatively moderate-sized house to make open outdoor living space on a beautiful location, which I think is terrific. I just want the board's opinion, though. Typically, we would say 1,102 square feet of decking is a lot of decking, and what kind of precedent might we be setting if we approve that?
okay. Other comments? Okay, I'll go follow up then, Bernie. If you go out to the neighborhood and you go to the site, and I got out and walked up this street and around, what you realize is, yes, there is a lot of deck here that they're proposing, but this home, and that home, they're right up on Las Alturas, and they're kind of gated and walled and whatever because their outdoor living areas are all facing towards Sycamore Canyon. So they really don't, in many ways, don't really look at this house in any way because, one, it's screened along the road. So if you go up there and look, this is all full of screening. You'll see it in some of the photographs. And these two homes here, sit 40 to plus feet above that house, way up above the street. So their view down into this house is only looking at the garage and the front door. These homes here, this home specifically right there, that's the back end. Their view is back towards the city as well as these. So in this particular case, if you really understand the neighborhood and been out to look at it, I would be of the opinion that in some cases, yes, this could be an excessive request for a large amount of deck, but given Denise's comment about the fact there is no level living space, because this is a completely downhill site, and the drop between these two pieces of road that surround the house is considerable. So in that case, I'm a little less concerned about what they're proposing as I might be in another application. So this is really germane. You have to kind of look at it in the context of the neighborhood and the immediate houses. So who else has comments?
I have no comments.
Okay. We are supposed to, what are they asking? This is second concept review. So in essence, if we're kind of comfortable with what we see, we could do a couple of things. One, we could give it a motion for project design approval. There's still some stuff here that has to be put on the drawings to give it final approval. You need to get your engineer to work out how this thing sits on here, get the drawings corrected for the horizontals that are there, et cetera. But we could give it project design approval with no comments. We could give it project design with comments or anything addition, or we could ask them to come back. Okay? So who's ready to make an action?
Well, I'll go ahead then.
Okay?
I'll give it project design approval. I guess to come back to consent for details, or
Yeah.
or
that's
or
fine.
come back, or just
It's got to come back for final to somebody, either us or consent.
okay. I'll give it project design approval to come back to consent with the following comments. The board appreciates the design of the deck and wants to see a clarification of how the hot tub itself is being framed underneath in relationship with the deck. Also, some clarification or some drawings or illustrations of landscaping below the deck.
And correct the drawings for the overhead.
And a more accurate illustration of the elevations showing the railing above the deck and the trellis element.
NPO findings.
And the following, and have the following,
Before you proceed, could
Yeah.
I suggest to the maker of the motion that you put something in the motion about our review of the size of the deck in terms of its acceptability or not acceptability? So that gets in the record.
yeah, due and also to the fact that the deck is a first level deck, is in the rear of the property and is surrounded by heavy vegetation, coupled with the fact that they did get a letter from the neighbor saying that they approved the project. So their good neighbor policy was followed. We therefore felt that it was that the size of the deck was appropriate in this particular case.
Okay. And you've got a little more.
Oh, and then and with the MPO findings, the consistency in appearance is appropriate with the neighborhood, is compatible with the size, bulk, and scale, quality of architecture and materials were used, and they followed good neighborhood guidelines.
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
will we be getting drawings about where the plumbing and drainage and all that
That'll
goes
all
with
come
it?
back to at the consent calendar.
Okay.
That's part of the final set of drawings. Okay. Other
Are we,
comments?
are we concerned with their keeping the colors that are already there? Are we going to ask for?
Do you want to add
We're
that?
adding
Yes,
a lot
add
of,
a color board.
And the colors should be,
What existing?
Matching.
Matching existing, yes.
okay.
Do they need a color
Is that
board for
acceptable to the seconder of the motion?
I don't know. Michelle, hold on. Michelle Bedard was pretty adamant about that even if it matched, they still needed a color board. Is that still
Yeah,
accurate?
no, they still need a
Okay.
color board. And what I'll, because you're making notes, when you come back to what appears to be going to be the consent calendar, we'll finish the motion here in a minute. When you come back, you need to bring an 8.5 by 11 color board.
Okay.
And you can't just say match existing. You actually have to bring us a sample of what's colored there. And then those notes have to be on these drawings. So assume this is an architect,
Yes.
has to note that that's going to be color such and such. That's going to be color such and such,
Okay.
et cetera. That has to be on these drawings. Okay? All right, so did we get accepted for the second piece of that?
Seconded.
Who seconded?
Oh,
Denise,
I
you
did.
okay? You're okay with the little addition? that you
Yes,
just
I
made?
am.
Okay, any further comments? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, we will see you at consent calendar, work with Katie to get that in. Okay, thank you.
You guys like to keep the other two sets? I'll cycle them.
I would like one, and then I can.
Okay, we're at.
Thank you very much.
Oops, where are we at? Oh, two. We're okay. We're on time. Okay, 2327 Edgewater Way.
So, Mr. Chair, I stepped down on this
Okay,
one.
thank you.
I did write a letter.
That lot. Skinny.
All right. This is 2327 Edgewater Way. This is here for a second concept review, comments only. Project requires Planning Commission review and environmental assessment and was last reviewed on September 19th, 2016. Welcome. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Jacob Nixto, the architect.
Tom Hinson, the architect.
Derek Eichelberger with Arcadia Studio, landscape architect.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miller, if you'll read the action of our last review.
Sure. Number one, the majority of the board finds the proposed project is too large. Applicant to reduce maximum floor to lot ratio FAR to 85%. Number two, restudy the style of the architecture and if the beach cottage look and materials are compatible, overall design.
Okay.
Number three, restudy a two-car garage design instead of a three-car garage design in order to reduce the FAR. Number four, the board could support relocating the driveway away from the proximity of the adjacent neighbor's property with a northeasterly front area green buffer between the home and the driveway, and which relocates the garage to the west side of the property. Action carried by Woolery, seconded by Motisha. Motion was carried.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if you could share with us how you address those comments, please.
Yeah. So the first thing to point out is we did bring down the square footage by approximately 500 square feet. So I don't know if you recall from last time, there's a little bit of, there's actually four separate lots kind of that are loosely affiliated here. The primary lot is the long and narrow lot. There's also a 3-foot lot here, a 3-foot wide lot here, a 10-foot wide lot here, and then this lot as well, which is also owned, but is technically a separate lot. And because it's in front of the 75-year geologic setback line, is essentially an unbuildable lot that is just their yard. That being said, so when we came in last time, we were at a 99% FAR. We're now down to 89% FAR. If you look at just the lots that are joined, being this primary one and this 3-feet one.
So that doesn't count this one?
That doesn't count this one. Okay. If you were to include this one and also the 10-foot strip up here that is part of the driveway, we're down to an 85% FAR on that area. We've reduced the overall length in part by one of the comments is going from a 3-car down to a 2-car, so we are a 2-car garage. We've also taken out square footage within the house itself, so we've reduced the length down about 19 feet total. It is fair to say that this is a long and narrow lot, so the house is somewhat long and narrow, but we've done the best we can to kind of mitigate that as much as possible. In terms of the materiality, previously we were looking at a horizontal siding. We have changed that to be a shingle exterior. That kind of helps eliminate at least somewhat the long and narrow lines. And we have added a couple of additional cross gables to the massing in this area and this area as well, so that we've got this kind of metric of kind of gable with infill and gable, infill. We've tried to do that kind of on both sides as well. So the gable kind of breaks down the linearity as much as we can on this long linear lot. So let's see, the owner, Carol and Brad Hack, were very interested in, there's an adjacent lot. There's an adjacent project that was recently approved right here to the east. And so we were essentially trying to make sure that we were doing no worse in terms of FAR and height and plate heights, et cetera. So we kind of came up with a comparison of where we are in terms of looking at this house that was approved at a 91% FAR, while we're at an 89% FAR, or 85 if we're able to include that. By the spirit of the law, we've got less kind of second floor square footage. We're not trying to have just as much as we can on top. We're really trying to break the massing down so that it is kind of low and just has a master suite and an additional bedroom upstairs. We have kind of less second floor deck area, about the same second finished floor from first to second. Even our second floor plate is about 4 inches less at max, and the overall height is right about the same, essentially 24.1 to 24.3. Similar 5 and 12 roof slope, and in general, we've tried to kind of make sure that this is something that's compatible with the style of the single level houses. Although there are numerous 2-story houses along this beachfront.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. I want to take a moment just to thank the board, because you did a lot of verbal description when you weren't looking at the drawings. So
I think it is worth pointing out something we would like the board to weigh in on. Is there is a deck, an existing deck in this existing portion of the house that somehow through all these years, the 60s and 70s, yeah, you can see it there. There was no permit ever obtained for this deck. However, we've done our best to kind of go back through the years on CaliforniaCoastline.org and find photos that show even as far back as 1972, there was kind of a deck there in front of the house. 1979, again, a deck there as well. And then there was an aerial photo from 1966 in the UCSB archives where it's showing this would be the house right here. That's the front wing, and that's the living room wing, and a little deck kind of there as well. So I believe that is something that is, I'm not sure if that falls under the SFDB's purview, but we've been talking with the planning department about it and would like your feedback on that nonetheless.
Okay. Katie, can I see the previous drawings?
There is while we're talking about decks, there is on the second floor, we kind of have an open balcony, a covered loggia, and a little small Romeo and Juliet sized balcony. These are the two kind of larger ones, which are not excessive, are on the side where there's an extra setback from the neighbors, and there's also an easement there, so there's not likely to be anyone within 50 feet. And so we've tried to keep this one kind of as small as possible as it faces the ocean and the view.
Okay, we're going to come back to questions from the board, but I just want to make a chance we get a chance to actually look at these set of drawings.
This is
Okay. And the landscape is what you presented last time?
There's just a few modifications to those changes to the site plan. By moving this garage, reducing this garage, we were able to add an extra parking space here. We did the layout of this motor court. It got a little bit, he wants me to talk into this. This got a little bit wider right here. And the previous concept had Italian cypress as a linear planting along the edge of the driveway. The owner asked that we change those to palms, which I'm proposing as king palms. I've also changed the plant material along the edge of that property line to be Raphiolepis umbellata minor, which is more water conserving than the previous presentation. From the edge of the motor court back, there's been no changes.
Thank you. Okay. Before we go to questions, comments from the board, I have speaker slips. And Katie, before I go to the speaker slips, which I...
Sorry, I gave you the wrong speaker slips. There are no speaker slips.
There are no speaker slips. Okay. Did we have any communication other than Ms. Bernstein's communication?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Is anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Yes.
On the elevation, A3.0, are you showing? Are you showing a glass railing on the elevations A3.0? No?
I believe the as-built deck has either a glass or a plexiglass panel at the front there. It does not have that along the sides.
On the south elevation, yeah. So that's old existing plexiglass when you're going to remain, or?
That is the as-built
Okay, I
deck.
see that. Okay.
It's remaining,
Yes.
as they're shown on the sketch.
Yes.
Okay, other questions? While everybody's still formulating their questions, let me go to the elevations on your east elevation. That large window is from what function inside the house?
That's in kind of the stair hall. So
that's a staircase?
Yes.
Okay, and on the site plan, where is that window in relationship to the neighbor property? Is that in here?
That's right here. Yes, in this gable here.
And then,
And
yes.
if I may, the owner did have a conversation with the neighbor Jeff here about this, the
Okay.
lineup of these windows. That is kind of the one window. We've tried to minimize the windows here that are closer to
Okay,
his.
so you've had conversation with the neighbors?
Yes.
Okay.
My understanding
And
he
then,
was okay with it.
excuse me, this is a public hearing, and the discussion is to the board, so I'd appreciate comments from the audience need to be withheld, okay? Because we need to be able to have our conversation up here to make some decisions. Okay. Let's see, 512 on the pitches. So you have original roofs that were at 3 and 12. They're going to remain at 3 and 12, correct?
This is 5 and 12.
Oh, 5, excuse me. I'm just reading at 3. So it's 5 and 12, so they're going to remain basically what they are today.
Correct.
You're going to reside this thing in
Correct.
shingles. You're redoing windows, et cetera.
Correct.
And then that's the same here, but you know, I'm having a problem because that doesn't look like 5 and 12. That's
This
what is
one
this
here
3 and
is
12?
3.5 and 12.
Okay.
The existing, and this is in the portion
Okay.
that's beyond the 75-year the geologic
No,
setback.
I understand that, but it didn't look quite right to me. That one doesn't look quite right. If I did this is actually closer to 4 and 12. Okay. That's what I was asking, because it just didn't look right.
Give me the scale.
Yes, there you go. And then, let's see. West elevation. Okay, so that's the west. And so the garages are approached from the west.
Correct.
Right. And so this is the 10-foot easement? Or piece of property?
This is a 10-foot
Oh, here. Okay,
piece of property right here.
All right, and that's where these palm trees are going?
Yes.
Is that right? Is that how I'm reading that? And question to my colleagues, given their proposed species of palms, how high do those guys get?
I'm sorry, which one? The king
palm
palms?
trees, the palms coming along,
Oh, they get pretty tall. They're
which is what, 30, 40 feet?
40 feet.
40 feet?
King.
Kings.
I don't know. I call it 30.
Okay.
So they're a little shorter. Okay. And then out on the front, I'll just use this. So there is a proposed gate and pilasters or something?
Yeah.
Do we know what those look like yet? That's not been done yet?
No.
Okay. And the motor cart is permeable pavers, and I'm assuming this is some kind of stone area?
Yeah, like a curved edging.
All right. Those are my basic questions, and the rest are comments. So, okay. Anyone else have questions?
I have no questions.
Okay. Then let's go to comments. Who has comments? This project is here for a concept review. It's still, you haven't been to Planning Commission yet. That's still required.
Correct.
And you still need an environmental assessment. So all we can do is make comments today. Okay.
The majority of the square footage that you eliminated was the one-car garage. And I'm just comparing, I got last setup, so
They said they 500. One car is 20
Yeah.
feet
400 square feet.
Well, one car is about
No,
10
that's
by
two.
20.
That's right.
That's
That's, I'm
200.
sorry.
So
That's wrong.
another
10 by
300
10.
take another 300 out
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at,
200 square feet.
I'm just kind of looking at lines and lines.
Yeah, I think the easy way to kind of gauge is we've gone
Well,
to about
that's the
41.
garage. That's the single-car garage you took away right there. It's still, you left the building basically in the same place. That's in the same.
Well, we went from about 22 to about 42, so we took off 10 for
Yeah.
the garage and then another 10
Can we bring it
throughout
over
the
in the camera?
house.
So basically, is that point right there, that point?
It is not. It's this point, I mean, if we have a scale,
Okay, so we've got pushback, is that what we're saying?
we pushed it back that
Okay.
way by taking a little bit of space here and there incrementally.
So
out of
this
the-
point got pushed back in, or excuse me, that point got pushed back in this section.
Is this yeah, that point is 41. So here, this point is 35.
Okay,
so this
so
point got
it
pushed
got
back
pushed
about
back.
6 feet. We can't go back too much further. Part of the reason that this ends up working is because this 10-foot extra piece of land here allows us to back out and get the car kind of going that way. Right now, with the garage here, it's almost impossible to kind of back your car out and turn around and get it going down this way. So.
Other comments?
Yes, I think it's a great improvement from the first time. I think the siding choice is a wise one. I think it works a lot better for that area. And I do appreciate your bringing the FAR down as well. I think that this is much more compatible.
I like what you've done and changed, put some gables in there that makes it look, from the previous drawings, makes it look more like what was there, and it matches the elevations you go around the house, adding the gables.
Yes.
I feel it's more portable now, due to the comments that the others made, and that you have followed our suggestions from the last meeting. It'd be nice to see it at 85%, but possibly support 89.
Okay, other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I like the design. I'm a little bit uncomfortable. It still seems a little too large for me based on the size of the property and the context of the neighborhood, but I look forward to your other comments to see what your feelings are.
Right, other comments? Yeah, I tend to feel that there needs to be more square footage taken out. And here's the dilemma. And you're going to say, well, but you approved the house in the next lot. And it's at 91 FAR, whatever. One of the problems we're having in this neighborhood is we've got all of these lots on the bluff, and this is something I brought to the City Council's attention and the Planning Commission's attention. And in my view, nobody wants to deal with it at this point. Because what's happening is these people are taking advantage of these very large lots. And you just indicated, well, if I did this other piece of property, I could get the FAR to work. The problem is they use these large lots to bump up their FAR because they can't build on a third or two-thirds of the site. So now we get all of these big homes jammed up on the street, and we have neighbors who line up and they're very upset. And I get phone calls all the time after the fact. Why did you guys approve that big, huge project? Just because these folk came in from out of town and have a lot of money, and et cetera, et cetera. You can hear all the arguments being made. So that's kind of the dilemma. And I'm looking at the size of some of these rooms. If you'll hand me that scale, the scale. For instance, just you can pick anything here. We're looking at a master bedroom that's 19 feet by 16 feet. And I'm seeing a layout for furniture. That's a big room. It's a lot of space. And it dawned on me, I had the fortune to visit a couple of George Washington Smith's homes this weekend that were done in the heyday of his practice. And even though they were grand estates, one was out in Montecito, the rooms themselves are not grand, except for perhaps maybe the living room or the dining room. And I just have a real problem with, it's like the architecture's cool. You got the plate heights down to 7 feet 6 inches. You got the roofs articulated. You got the massing articulated. That's all perfectly acceptable. I want to take and suck this whole thing in by a few feet in every direction. You know, keep all the functions, not change anything, but just make all this stuff get smaller. Then it would sit on the site a much better way, and in my view, really start to address the concern the Mason neighborhood has about all these large homes that are starting to line up on the bluffs. And we're going to see a lot more of them as all of these homes get traded out. So that's kind of my problem. So you can say, well, yes, we went from 91 to 89, and we should be at 85, and et cetera, et cetera. And that, in some ways, is kind of all relative. So I'm still having a problem with the size of the house. I certainly can't support any glass railings whatsoever. So even if that's an existing deck, I'd want the railings to change out to match the design that you provided in the other part of the house. So I'm having a real problem. We're going to continue to see this stuff. We had one in the Upper East where, you know, the guy made all the math work, but now we have this huge home that's going up with a full basement. The house is now 9,000 square feet, but he got all the math to work. So, you know, we didn't have a lot of tools to work with. And the council and the planning commission are looking at us and saying, you guys are the experts to look at size, scale, and bulk. And I think you got the scale right. I think the bulking of the house looks kind of okay, but it's the size. And those three things got to work together. And so my view is it's just still too large.
I differ with you, Mr. Sweeney. I don't think the house is too big. And I think there's a reason why these houses are being big on the bluffs. It's because we've got these huge lots that can't be used. And you have an example of a lot on lots that can't be used, and you're making good use of it. And because there are those properties that are in front of the house, in front of the front door, it doesn't make the lot or the house look too big for the lot. I'm for putting bigger houses on the bluffs because the biggest reason we have people complaining because the houses are too big is because they're stacked right next to each other. They don't look good. You put a 2-story with a bunch of decks next to a 1-story that's going to be there for the next 40 years, and it doesn't look good, and the neighbors complain. But here, do you have any neighbors complaining about the size of the house? Have you, honestly?
On the first level, they asked, the first submittal, they did ask us to bring it down.
But you have brought the size down in the size of the rooms. No, I would support a house at this big because you have a lot of property there, and the house is hidden, and you don't have neighbors that are complaining that the house is right next to their little dinky house, and you're doing something to the neighborhood. You're not doing something to the neighborhood. You're adding a good-sized house where it belongs, on the bluff, where the price of a house belongs. I mean, you're looking at a bluff house that's going to be quite a few $1 million in a few years, and I just can't believe that we're going to restrict this client or this applicant to say, hey, we're going to bring the house down and we're going to reduce the price of a house that could be a major. I mean, we care. We've done it a lot on this board. We care there's boats going by, and we care what the house looks like from the shore. But from the shore, this doesn't look like a big house because it's on basically what they've given us is a narrow lot. But we have all this property out here in the front,
and
or to the west of the property.
It's screened from the front. There is another residence here.
The one thing I don't like, and haven't liked, is the fact that you're taking the driveway right by this guy's bedroom window.
Can I respond to that?
Probably not much you can do about that.
Why don't you write your comments down? Let's let our board members make all of them.
I think I've addressed that before about, but I like the size of the house. I think the house should be as big as you're proposing. You have brought it down. You have followed our direction. I don't think we should force them to make the house any smaller
I have some comments.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm finished.
You finished?
Yeah.
I think we've got to be really careful. It's not about whether we like it or dislike. It's about whether its size, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the context and the fabric of the community itself. It's not about my emotional feelings about it or how much it costs or how much it doesn't cost. I just look purely at what is this house doing in the context of the neighborhood, and if it fits and if it's appropriate. And I feel it's too big at this point because of the way it's a weird property. It's sandwiched in, and we go to Southern California, you go in the mountains of San Clemente, you see massive houses packed on each. In fact, I have a friend who has a house in Laguna Beach, and the guy next door promised he wouldn't build a second story, and now he's got a third story, and all the windows look down on his pool. You know why? Because it's all multi-million-dollar properties, and he can do it, he can pay for it, and he did it. So, no, I look at this, and I see size, bulk, and scale, I see the context of the neighborhood, and I say it's still a little too big, and that's where I'm coming from. And it's not whether I like it. I think it's a beautiful design. I think it's excellent.
Lisa, comments?
To follow that, proportionally, just the way the property is arranged, if it was sucked in a little bit, I agree with Fred that proportionally it would fit better.
Okay, other comments?
The house is always going to be a linear house. No matter if we make it any smaller, it's always going to be exactly what it is. And I know this board is you're supposed to look at size, bulk, and scale, and all three of those words are supposed to stick together. But we've gave a little leniency before on size, bulk, and scale, and trying to have these stick right together and match. And I don't think this is a situation where we have to. I'll stop there.
Well, you're entitled to that's perfectly valid. I mean, that's your.
I can appreciate, I like Joe's analysis about how it sits back and it's not lined up right on the street, and it's hidden by this other front house, which who knows may come back as another project with wanting 2 or 3 stories. But I do have a question to my landscape colleagues. I'd like to hear your comments about the row of palm trees.
Well, as far as screening, they don't provide screening. They're way too far on space, far too far on center for that.
What's wrong with
this isn't working? It's the second one. And it's a bit rigid of a planting.
Yeah, it is.
Soldier row of evenly spaced palms are.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little pretentious myself to be doing that, and to have them all lined up like you're driving into a big estate, which it kind of is. I'll weigh in on the size, bulk, and scale. I have to admit that I love what your changes that you made, but this house does look like it's been shoehorned onto this lot. I mean, it's what you have to work with. It's always going to be a linear house, but boy, is it cramped. It's like, it just gives me claustrophobia to look at the lot lines on this one. And, you've got a tough lot to work with, actually.
The reason I ask about the palm trees is yes, it has an allay. It reminds me, there's several homes in Hope Ranch that are in-treed like this with big allay of palm trees, but they're obviously on much larger parcels. But I was more concerned about, will you see those palm trees if you're walking down Edgewater Way, even though you're looking past this house and that house and
When they
the
grow
trees
up,
and foliage? Will they grow higher than some of the other foliage on that street?
I bet,
Eventually,
sure.
how big are the specimens you're putting in?
They would probably be 24, 36-inch boxes.
It'll take a while
Yeah.
before
Oh,
you see them.
yeah.
But they will get high.
Yes.
Okay, other comments? Okay, again, this project can only have comments because it has to travel to the Planning Commission, and it needs an environmental assessment. And then you had some comments.
Am I able to respond to a couple
Yes,
questions?
go ahead.
Sure. You asked about the driveway adjacent to the neighbors here. We've been in communication with them, and they continue to prefer having this driveway here. The reason is this easement is not an exclusive easement to Carol and Brad, but it's a shared easement, and they prefer to have the ability to someday potentially get back to the back of their their property without a green strip in between. So we fully agree. We've proposed many times, tried to, show them that we feel that, a green buffer between their house and the driveway would be appropriate and great for them and great for us and a win-win. But they do have their reasons for preferring that, and because it is a non-exclusive easement, our hands are somewhat tied in that
So do
regard.
both parties maintain it?
I'm not sure who maintains it, other than if I believe if it needs repair, either one can repair it. Another comment, just to again reiterate, on the length of this house, this 10-foot addition here. I should also reiterate, there is a 24-foot wide easement here that becomes a 34-foot wide easement in this area on behalf of this property. So we are limited to building here, but in reality, the open space will essentially be this for, so much of the lot is this here. And I think when you start to look at what we've done here in terms of the size of this bluff and this, even this open area here, we've also, this is also in response to this neighbor trying to not, their great views are right down this alley, trying to not push it over there in front of their views. So this 10-foot piece of property here is also, again, where kind of where the garage needs to be in order to have this car reasonably back up and be able to access it from that point. So any reduction in FAR was likely to be in the width. And if, again, we're looking at it like that.
If I can, I think I like your design. I wouldn't change your design. Leave it, but just see if you just a little bit.
Okay, I think he's heard that. But you have another comment?
And one last, I think you had mentioned, Fred, about the side. The lot does extend down the bluff, and there's bluff here that's not shown. Similarly, if we were to just say, okay, the property ends here, and we are including this open space here, not even the easement that's on somebody else's property. This amount of land here and this 10-foot parcel here essentially cancel out the length of this thing here. So we would be at 89% FAR on a parcel of this size here. So even if we're not going out into the ocean, it's not 85, but at some point we're not allowed to build there. This is where we're allowed to build. This is, so we're trying to get it down. We're trying to, because of the way that the lots, I would ask if we did join these lots and then it was officially 85, would that change the board's mind on the percentage of FARs given this? That's not, because of stormwater and easements, we've been advised that that's not preferable to join this lot and this lot. But I'm simply throwing that out there in terms of we have considered it and understand the comments that, the bluff gives you this kind of extra space. But we've got a little extra yard space as well that we are trying to consider on our side. So.
Okay. Any further comments? Yes.
Could I respond to the driveway issue?
Yeah.
I completely appreciate your comments about the palm tree and the repetitive placement. I just want you to look at the condition with the house right along the side of the driveway. I mean, there really is no there. We're just trying to, for a nice new home, create some sort of statement that this driveway does represent a new home. So, and we will restudy that, but it's a very tricky situation.
I love rigid. I have no problem with it.
Other comments?
Well, I just have to say, based on what Joe said, and then looking at the actual size of the property, it's not an easy easy way to decide the ultimate. And my inclination is because of the weirdness of the property and the way the house is stretched out because you had no choice. Just reducing it a little bit seems like not much, just a little bit. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm left with.
I appreciate your comments about this. It's true that even though if you look at the lot lines, it looks shoehorned, but yes, there is this space out here, isn't
Yeah.
there?
And-
So it really is going to have space in front of it.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so that feels better to me. I like that. I think that makes it a little bit
I wish
more
you could-
compatible.
But,
Yeah, it's too bad you can't shift
We
it.
all
over.
do.
yeah,
Yeah, everybody does.
so,
Okay.
You may have done the best you can with this lot.
Other comments? Okay. Okay, no further comments, then the chair would look for a motion. This can only be comments only. I think that the applicant will probably be looking for comments that they can carry with them to the Planning Commission. However, depending on how you do a motion, you need to indicate whether they're going to come back or suggest they come back before going to Planning Commission, or send them on to Planning Commission with comments. So the chair would look for a motion.
Okay, I'll give it a go. I move to continue this project to the Planning Commission with the following commentaries. That we appreciate the reduction in FAR from the original original plan, and still feel that we would like to see a further reduction in the FAR. We find the new design of the home with the shingle siding and the articulation of the house to be very favorable, and move it forward with positive comments in that regard. We'd like to ask for a study of the trees, the palm trees, a restudy of the palm trees coming into the project along the driveway on the west side. Oh, no, you don't.
I like it. Okay, so
Well, just another look.
okay, is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Comment?
I need a second to the motion in order to.
I'll second it.
Okay, so there's a second. Now we can go to
Under
discussion.
discussion.
Under discussion, would you, the maker of the motion, consider changing the existing plexiglass to
Oh, yes.
something to match the
Yes, we would like all railings to
construction.
match on the existing deck, to match the rest of the house and not be glass or plexi.
Okay. Is that acceptable to the second of the motion?
Yes.
I would just like to go to comment on Denise, your motion about the palm trees. I understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You've got to make a statement about, somebody's going to get an invite to come to a function here. And,
Yeah.
hey, it's got to
Where's
be
the
that
house?
driveway. You got to kind of know where it's going on. But I think the palm trees are a little too much. I think there's another way to do this. The other thing to think about it is as as we talk about size, scale, and bulk, and a lot of times that applies, we typically apply that to the physical building. But I think you also kind of need to apply it to the landscape solution, because as I've always kind of indicated, landscaping and the architecture kind of have to work together in order to come to a final composition. So you might think about the hierarchy of the landscaping as it starts from the street and as it gets back to the main house, so that the size, scale, and bulk, so to think, if you can think of it in that manner, with the relationship to the size and shape of the vegetation, is fairly important. And there may be a way to introduce this without creating a large height element at the front and allowing it to culminate in a higher element as you get to the house. So that may be something you want to look at.
Good comment, thank you.
Okay.
Maybe
other comments?
maybe a different color, a different kind of palm.
Okay. But we'll let they're talented people. They know what they're doing. So that was just a comment to the motion. So is there any other comments to the motion or other discussion? Okay. Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay. We'll see you when you get back to the planning commission.
And if we desire, can we come back here?
You can come back if you'd like. It's up to you. It's your choice.
You guys want to keep the other two sets? I just need one.
Okay, let's go. We're kind of on time, so let's go to 606 Sunrise Vista Way.
Looks like your choice.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, we got letters here about it. Look at all this.
No. Oh, my gosh.
So I had a chance to read these all.
Is this it? That's all there is?
Yeah, and do we have,
Hi.
okay, and do we have public comment?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of letters.
Yes, okay, that's right. Do I have one?
Do you have a packet of public comment?
No, I don't. Or maybe, excuse
Yes,
me,
you
no,
do.
it is here. I'm sorry, it is here. I'm sorry. It is here. Do we have any public speakers?
First one's this one.
Whoa.
Okay, I'm going to
Heavy at the top.
read the description, project description, only just because to bring the full board up. This has been sent up from the consent calendar. This is a proposal to remove the existing tile burnt red roof and replace 2 layers of 40-pound underlayment with new Burrell Saxony 900 country slate tile in color sea pearl blend. This is here for a concept review. The applicant is obviously trying to receive approval to finish the roofing. The roofing material has actually been placed and loaded onto the roof at this point. So that's just information you should know. And I know there's several public speakers and we have several letters. The way this kind of works is we're going to have the applicant to describe to us what they're trying to do. We'll absorb all that information. Then I will open it for public comment. If you're a speaker, you have 2 minutes to address the board. I will summarize the letters that have been sent to us. We'll then close public comment, and it comes back to the board for their questions and comments and action. So if you could introduce yourselves, please.
Okay, I'm Salvi Delabarco. My wife Karen is here. And we thank you guys for hearing this.
And you're the owner.
We're the owner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'd ask if we can kind of describe how we got here
Okay,
today.
let's have you do that in just a moment. If you could introduce yourself.
Pardon, this is Karen.
Sharon Fritz, I'm with Action Roofing.
Okay, now go ahead and share
Okay.
what you do.
In July, we purchased a home in this PUD, and we purchased it from an individual who has owned it for 30 years and been president for 10. And it was in a sorry state. The roofing was in particularly need of repair. Termite damage was extensive. So we needed to do a re-roof, and we thought we'd do this. We have other issues in our own personal life, which we weren't rushing to get in there, but we saw this as being the first thing that we needed to do, and we thought Action Roofing could take care of that. They went down and obtained the permit. We were very careful about selecting a roof after reading the CCNRs and not seeing anything that would prohibit us from using this particular tile. There was no, in the CCNRs, there was no apparent instruction about homeowner association review or requirement. And the seller who sold us, who's also a friend from 10 years of playing tennis as long as we've been here in Santa Barbara, it was his experience that no such review on any of the changes has taken place on any other place. So with that, we went ahead and obtained the permit and started the construction. And I think it was, I'm not sure, but we ended up with a stop notice after part of the installation had been accomplished, and it's where we are today. So since that time, in September, the roof was partially vandalized when one row of tile was removed, and it kind of brought us up to attention to the fact that we needed to do something. So we checked with the attorney, John Tyne, who's experienced, and he was the guy who handled the purchase for us, the transaction. And so his letter is attached in the file there of what his comments are on the CCNRs. So that's kind of where we're at. And what I wanted to do was to walk you through the...
Okay, I'm going to need to have you put it right down here because this is all on camera.
Okay.
It's right above us.
Okay. So this PUD, Sunrise Vista, feeds off Fellowship, and there are basically three legs to it, three cul-de-sacs. You rise up out of Fellowship at quite a steep, and then there's a sharp turn where you enter this cul-de-sac. And I think looking down the cul-de-sac, we have a view of that.
This view here.
It's this view here. It is this view here. Okay? That's the view. It's just three houses, two neighbours and the house at the end. We're at the very end.
So this is your...
Yeah, this was the one there. So what I wanted to do was to, in this first board, was to give you a sense of the architecture that was original in 1978, which is demonstrated by these two places here. This is 614 and 622. These are the originals, and it was typical of all the places that were there. Okay? Kind of a ranch style with a Monier tile, concrete tile, with colour surface. Since then, and over the course, and this is what I've been told, these are the changes that have gone on in style, and this is some more current ones that are quite different from the original. So you've got this original style that has been brought into current style with some diversity. And this is what we based, where we came from when we decided what we thought would fit really well in the neighbourhood. And this is where we are with that. So, excuse me. This is our immediate cul-de-sac neighbourhood. Okay? And this is our house, partially installed. This is the roof where it is right now. This is the same with a row of tiles that's been removed. And this is the view looking back from our front door up the cul-de-sac out to Sunrise Vista.
Push it this way because I need to get it on.
Okay.
All right.
And there is an example of the original roof, the state it was in. Lichen and a lot of the colour has faded away. What our view is to bring the colour of what we've got here with this. It's really a really nice country slate tile. That's and one of the colours, they're all new in this manufactured line.
And this is a sample of it right here?
Yes.
Okay, we can show
I didn't mean to spill paint, but we were splashing some paint samples up and it was difficult to remove it. I'm sorry. But you can see the pattern that generates itself out of this style because you've got a nice, unlike a lot of the slate tiles which are flat across, these are V-jointed at the edges so that you've got an additional pattern that is coming out.
Okay.
And the colour, we're looking at playing around with the colours. We've got the fascias and soffits have been done in this dark brown, and then the proposal to do the walls in this, I think I've got it in the description. Excuse me. It's a Sherwin-Williams. It's a Dunn-Edwards fine grain is this colour. It looks a lot darker on a white background than it does when it's on its own. But Urbane bronze is this colour here.
So this is the fascia.
That's the
body of the house.
That's correct. And we're looking at redoing the windows in a Milgard Essence Series bronze. Similar to that on the outside with wood on the inside. It's a vinyl covering. So that's pretty much it. So we're at the point where we really would like you guys to say, okay, finish the roof.
Right, thank you.
And here's an example. There's the tile.
That's the physical tile there, but that's not the tile.
It's actually a matrix of three different.
It's this color.
Yeah.
All right, if I can have you sit those down so
Okay.
that the audience can see it.
That is the color.
That is the color.
This is-
It's one of three, I think. They've got three different colors.
Okay, if I can have you set that on the floor so
Can
the
you
audience
pass
can
this over?
see. Thank you. All right, so that's the tile. Okay, anything else that you want me to present? Okay. All right,
Mr. Chair?
my microphone.
Well, can I say one more thing?
Yes, go ahead.
There is, I know that there's going to be some of the neighbours from the homeowners are here to protest this. I just would like to point out that in the documentation here, that my neighbour next to us, 602, which is immediately next to us, has written a letter of support that's in the file.
I have those.
Okay.
We've all received copies.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, before we go to comments from the public, Katie, you put a document in front of me.
That is the CCNRs from the original PUD.
Okay.
I'd also like to read into the record the memo that the city attorney sent
Yes,
us.
if you would, please.
Okay. So he said, homeowners associations act as both landlords and mini governments to their members. However, condominium owners with HOAs have more control over common features such as exterior additions, modifications, and control on the use, maintenance of buildings, or repairs such as roofs and other commonly owned improvements. The difference between a PUD home and a condominium townhome is that in a PUD, you actually own the land your home sits on and the house, and usually a small back and front yard also. The city cannot regulate and enforce on private CCNRs on PUDs that the city did not impose. Planning staff should check if any conditions exist which were placed on the original planning approvals before the granting any new permit approvals. No HOA approval letter is required to be submitted for these types of development PUD building permit applications.
Okay, thank you. So in essence, if I could summarize, condominiums are dealt with differently than PUDs. PUDs is what I think you just read.
That's correct.
The city has no purview over any CCNRs that are in place. Those are outside the jurisdiction of the city of Santa Barbara, with the exception of any comments made at the time of the approval of the PUD, which is the document I have in front of you. And I'm going to read the 5 points that were dictated as conditions of the PUD dated January 9th, 1978. Subject to the following conditions. No parking to be permitted on the main driveway or on the cul-de-sac. No lights be permitted on the tennis courts. Recreation vehicles to be covered or screened from view. Development of the property may not in any way block views from Island View Drive with either a second story or additions. 5, any fences or the tennis court will not block the view of the adjacent residence, or canvas or other material shall not be used on the fence. So those are the 5 conditions. There's no conditions in here about color. There's no conditions about building materials, roof materials, etc. So I don't read any of that in there. I only see those 5. So is that correct?
The city and the board's purview is not to enforce on private CCNRs. It is just on the compatibility findings and MPO findings and our guidelines that we have.
Okay.
Can I ask Katie a question about
Yes, go
that?
ahead.
Is this, did somebody do the research and it is actually a PUD?
This is in fact a PUD.
Right, I
Yes.
just want to verify
Yes, it's a
because I know
PUD.
sometimes there's an overlap.
No, it's right here in January
Okay.
1978.
Okay.
So no more questions from Katie. Then let's go to public comment. And I have 2 speaker slips. So I have Kathy McCammon. You'll come forward, and if we could move that so she can use this microphone, please, or that microphone.
This must be Island View. Okay, is this Island View?
Let's put this up here. Whoops.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Kathy McCammon, and I'm a resident of 626 Sunrise Vista Way, 622 Sunrise Vista Way, rather. I'm here representing our La Vista Estates Neighborhood Association. It's been the customary practice of our PUD. There are only 9 homes, and we've generally had a custom of having new people come and show plans and what they're planning to do. This didn't happen in this case, and I guess part of it has to do with who owned it before. He didn't want to follow rules either. We're mainly concerned with the tiles because we've had Spanish Mediterranean curved tiles in the red color on all the houses, and we've also had a cream color exterior. Now, people have bought homes there, they have remodeled, and in the past the city has required that they all maintain the same general roof type and color. That is what we're mainly concerned about. We've tried to reach out to the applicant that's before you, and unfortunately all our attempts at trying to be good neighbors and have been rebuffed. I mean, they've almost come to blows over the whole thing. I'm here to ask you to require the tiles be red, Spanish-style curved tiles, and that the exterior be in the cream color range.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
Yes, you indicated that there was the city, you said the city has previously said all the roofs need to be red. Was there a condition at some meeting somewhere that was said? Where is that coming from?
I believe the owner is here today of that house, Jerry Cardillo.
Which house are we talking about? This house?
We're talking about
the house
one
that's under subject
on the other. Let's see.
This is the house that's here today for application.
Where's the other cul-de-sac? The cul-de-sac that goes this way.
Okay.
Okay, his house, this one.
Okay.
When this expansion was done,
yes,
there's even a little
was a decision
Spanish
made
style.
at some board
Yes.
to make it red? Was it?
Yes.
Was it this board? Was it the
I
ABR?
believe it was ABR.
Okay.
That
we don't have that information. I mean, we don't have this information at this point. So that's why I was trying to clarify.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then just to clarify, you live at what, 626 you said?
622.
622, which is?
Right here.
That home, okay. All right.
Okay, and part of the reason, we really appreciate that this went from your consent calendar to the whole group, because one of the things that started when this was first done was the permit said the tile was like for like. Well, the dark gray is not the same as the curved red. And so it wasn't like for like, and then it required a design review. So this Action Roofing stopped work at the time when they realized there had been a mistake made. So now it had to go to design review.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you
our
very
next
much.
Speaker is Gerard Cordillo. Did you say that correctly? You have 2 minutes to address the board, please.
I hope you've had an opportunity to read some comments that I had submitted by email.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. My name is Gerard Cardillo. I'm a resident of the PUD in question.
Can you show me where you?
Yeah, 619 Sunrise Vista Way.
602, there's 619.
614. Yeah,
619.
Right. Right, and I'm also a director of the, well, actually all residents are directors of the board. By way of background, we've lived in the La Vista Estates for 13 years, and during that time, at least 3 of the 6 of the 9 homes have had major remodels, both the inside and the outside of the homes. In addition, there's 2 major remodels currently under consideration, one of which is 606 Sunrise Vista Way. In all cases, except for 606, the remodels are required by the city to obtain a letter of approval from the HOA. My understanding that this continues a process that started at the beginning of the HOA. Our house was one before we moved in. Our house had been modified.
So let me ask you, you're
Sure.
using HOA as the Homeowners Association?
Yes.
That's the acronym?
Right.
And you're
Yes.
saying there's a document that exists somewhere that says?
No, I'm saying that the practice in the past,
Practice, but it's
every
not a document required.
not
correct?
that I know of.
Okay, so it's a practice. All right, thank you.
And that practice has been ongoing since 1978 when the place was built. The approval of the HOA has always been based on the external appearance of the remodels, and none were denied based on any interior changes. So he showed the variations in the styles of the houses, but the one thing that remained in common was the color of the tile, the type of tile, and the color of the house. All units in our home of the 9-unit PUD have red curved Mediterranean Spanish roofs and light colored cream exterior. And through the years, the HOA has desired to maintain this look. The current situation, I got involved in this. I was out in Goleta doing some chores, and Barbara.
You could wrap up, please. You have 2 minutes, so if you could wrap up, please.
Okay. I dropped what I was doing and ran and came home as soon as possible because they were loading tiles on the roof. Salvi was in the house, and I thought, okay, we could discuss this, and I did inform him that the HOA, this usual practice and so forth that I just described, and he basically said that he had purchased the home and he could do anything he wanted inside and out.
Okay, I think we understand your position.
Okay.
So I'm going to have you stop because we need to stay on
Sure.
time. Thank you.
And we do have your letter also.
We have your letter.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the public wishing to address this project? Okay. If you need to come forward, I'm going to summarize in the letter. We have 2 letters of support, one from a Dan Lord at 602 Sunrise Vista, which is the home next door to the applicant. They're writing the support. See if there's any additional information. They're replacing all the sun-damaged fascia. He had chosen a different color than the original 1982 one, but looks very similar in look and weight. Don't believe the roofing selection is in conflict with CC&R rules. Any contact from any association members must not be considered a representative of the association. Wood repair, etc. Let's see. And then there's a second letter attached from Sylvia and Karen Del Barcia.
Yes, this was a letter.
Excuse me, I'll read in the letter. So they share the tennis court, the roof is leaking, we consult CNRs, working with a roofing contractor, permit granted, opposition has taken us by surprise. Okay. We've all had copies of the letters, so the board has written this. That was okay. That was the letter I just read. So those are the 2 letters of support. And no one else has come forward, so the chair is then going to close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions and comments. So who has questions? Anyone
I
have
do,
questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Everybody goes through an escrow when they buy a property, and one of the documents that comes out is the Homeowners Association documents, the CC&Rs. They have to be signed and received. My question is there anything in there about this?
No.
In where?
In the CC&Rs?
In the homeowners docs or the CC&Rs or any of that?
No,
Nothing.
Nothing. If you read John Tyne's letter of comment, because we hired him to review that document, and his comments are there in the letter on the file.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing no other questions, let's go to comments. And I'm going to comment first because Denise and I moved this to the consent calendar, from the consent calendar to the full board.
Yeah.
And we did so because, first of all, we've been advised on several occasions by the city attorney that CC&Rs really don't hold water unless, as Katie pointed out, it's stipulated in the approval of the PUD. And I read you the 5 things that are in there, and none of them talk about colors, roofs, or anything else. So that was a dilemma for us, and I think both of us felt a little uncomfortable trying to make this call all on our own, particularly when this color and colorways that are being provided by the applicant are so different than the other homes on these streets. And we often talk about the context of the neighborhood. In fact, when we make motions for approvals, we're supposed to determine whether or not the homes fit within the context and fabric of the neighborhood. And in this case, I'm of the view, and others may have different opinions, but I'm of the view that these two little streets, these two little fingers in there, formulate a neighborhood because they're kind of isolated and they were approved as a PUD. So by definition, they're kind of a neighborhood, even though they're part of Fellowship and the other parts of the neighborhood. And you notice in the PUD document, there is comment about view corridor from this street up here, which is Island View Drive. So there's some requirements to hold these houses down because they sit lower, and they talk about you can't have a second floor. And you'll note that our last meeting, we reviewed a major remodel of this home right here. Yep. Remember I brought that to your attention. And they're proposing a slightly different roof shape, but it's kind of a red color, as I recall, et cetera. So that's why I brought that, because I knew this was coming this week. So I think and Denise can speak for herself, but I think collectively we were very uncomfortable moving ahead, approving a house that was going to be colored different roof color, et cetera. The house itself is not changing dramatically. They're not proposing any, they mentioned changing windows out, et cetera. We don't know what all those windows are going to look like. That's a question I'm going to have for Katie in a moment. So that's kind of why we brought it here. I don't know, Denise, you have other?
No, you said it perfectly.
Okay. And then, Katie, just to be clear, if they're going to change windows out, does that require our review or permitting,
Yes.
or what's that do?
Yes, it does. And if it's not included in the project description, it either needs to be added or that would be a separate
application.
Yes.
So if they change the windows,
Any exterior
just like when I
finish.
did my house and changed all my windows, I had to come and
Yes.
get approved. Okay. All right. So you understand that's going to be a separate process. You can't put those unless you want to combine it with this application. No. Okay. So those are kind of why we got it here. So we're interested to see what you all think.
I'm under the understanding that the city doesn't have jurisdiction over this, over the roof.
No, we, this board, yes, we do. We as the city of Santa Barbara. What the folks that are discomforted by this, the people that have spoken in opposition, they're saying, look, they were trusting their CCNRs to guide how things get done. The city attorney has said, no, that we as a city board don't have to pay attention to that. That's not something the city of Santa Barbara recognizes. So it's here because we have to make a decision. Is what they're proposing compatible with the neighborhood, or is it not compatible with the neighborhood? That's kind of the essence of the question.
So as a board, we do have jurisdiction.
So we do have jurisdiction. We can tell the applicant.
Legal jurisdiction.
We can tell the applicant we're perfectly fine with what they're proposing, or we can tell the applicant that we're not fine and give them some guidance of what we would accept. So that's kind of the two. There may be other nuances of that, but essentially that's kind of the two actions we could take. Yes.
I'm kind of conflicted because while keeping the red tile, rounded edge tile roofs, we'll be keeping with the fabric of the neighborhood. When the other remodels were done, the architecture was approved by, I guess, ABR, and the remodels aren't consistent with the original homes. So that's just my comment.
Okay. Other comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair. No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking from a neighborhood compatibility point of view. And first of all, if you look at the ordinance findings, the three first things, 1, 2, and 3, 1, consistency and appearance, consistent with the scenic character, 2, compatibility, and 3, quality architecture and materials. But if you think about PUDs such as you drive down the Carrillo Hill, and on the right side they're all Spanish style, you know that development? That's one. They're 2 stories. They're all pretty much similar. They're all 2 stories. They all have red
But those
tile
are
roofs.
condos, correct?
No, they're PUDs.
No, they're PUDs.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I guess I'm just, I'm torn also because it's a tricky issue, but there is something to say that neighbors want to buy a PUD because they're buying the uniformity and the consistency of appearance and all those kinds of things.
I agree with you, Bernie. That makes this really difficult because this gentleman's already purchased his roof material and he can't take it back. I mean, can you?
No. Oh, I mean, at a cost. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you got to re-roof it. You got to roof it twice.
I have just a question for you. So, when you bought this place, did you not know that you had an HOA and that there would
Absolutely.
be? So it never dawned on you that perhaps it would be a good idea to go to them and ask them their opinion on this.
No. I just read the CCNRs.
Okay.
What's interesting is that they had an annual meeting just on November the 6th where they have now written out what they described. Mm-hmm. Had that been in existence, we wouldn't be here. But there was nothing there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like Bernie. I mean, every PUD I've ever seen, they're created on purpose so that there's uniformity throughout. So I'm having a real hard time supporting your position because it is really throwing a wrench in the works as far as this little community goes. It's not compatible with this community. They are all red tile roofs, and that was the intention. That's the intention of a PUD. If you wanted to have a place that was unique, then you wouldn't have bought a PUD. That's how I feel about it. But maybe perhaps my fellow board members will feel differently.
The only comment I have at the moment is I live in a PUD, and it's also a condominium, which is really weird. But that's about as far as I can go on this. I'm listening to you guys and trying to educate myself about this, so I'm kind of torn too.
Other comments? I just want to add, when we reviewed this house, as you recall, I think we gave some guidance to the applicant when...
An island view, are you talking about?
No, this house right here.
It was
we
in
looked
this
at 2 weeks ago. You were not here.
It's in the same PUD.
Oh, okay.
It's this house right here. And they're proposing a complete redo of the house. It's still 1 story, but it's a complete redo. And I think at the time, they indicated they would probably match the roof that's on the house now, with new tile, because it's going to all get re-roofed and so forth. And we suggested collectively at that meeting 2 weeks ago that we would entertain a different shaped or style of tile roof, but we felt it was kind of important to stay to the burnt umber or red color. That it was, I think that if Katie goes back and looks at the comments, that was our comments, that we were open to a different, flat tile or a different shape roof tile, because I think we collectively didn't really feel that these roof-shaped tiles really replicate so-called Spanish architecture. They're kind of 1960s Mediterranean stuff. So I don't think anybody was terribly enamored with the shape of the tile, but I think we collectively said, no, it kind of has to be in the same color family as the houses next to it and in the rest of the neighborhood. So I believe, Katie, you're agreeing with me?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I believe that was the direction given by the board. If you stayed within the same color scheme, but you could change the shape or tile, that would be fine.
And they because they're early in the review process, so they're coming back, and there were some other things we talked about. So we kind of gave direction to another applicant within the same time frame that we're reviewing this project in the same neighborhood.
Well, now, Mr. Chair, thinking about it, the thing about this tile, it's a nice-looking tile, but it does completely change the direction of the house. It's more of a modern, contemporary look, where and so it actually is bending towards a different style of architecture than it originally was, just by the style of the tile.
And we're talking about the roof, so the chair would be interested. The applicant is proposing a different color on the house in terms of the wall, the body of the house, and the frames of the windows, et cetera. So
If I
Yes.
could just step in. That is not included in this project description, so,
So
it
it
would either
wouldn't
need to be
be-
added or it'd be a
It's
separate application.
Separate review. Okay, thank you for clarification. So we're really just talking about the roof at this point?
Just the re-roof.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We're at almost 5 o'clock, so if there's no further comments, the chair would look for some kind of motion.
Well, have we gone through and seen who? I don't get that the board's made any kind of decision yet.
No, well, that's why I'm asking, is
Yeah,
are we
so,
ready to make a decision? Is
Well,
somebody ready to make a motion?
can we get some more people to weigh in a little bit about
I'll weigh
this?
in after listening to the statement you just made about our comments on the previous project. That does have bearing because we set a precedent requiring them to abide by the color scheme. But, you know, really.
Okay, is someone prepared to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, yes. Okay, and we just have to decide whether or not the tiles that are being presented are acceptable, and if they're not acceptable, then we need to give direction to the applicant.
The board, let's see, we're just.
So all we have to do is,
Can just make an action, okay.
we just have to decide whether the tiles that are being presented and the colors being presented are acceptable or they're not, and if they're not, then we need to give direction to the applicant.
The board finds that the tiles.
Okay.
The board finds the tiles being presented are not consistent with the existing color scheme fabric of the neighborhood and the PUD, and we're okay with the style, but just not the color.
No, I think.
No.
I'm not.
No, the rounded.
Yep.
Do we have a?
You might, if you'd like, and I'm just going to suggest this because you're the maker of the motion, you could suggest that the tile needs to be similar to the tile color of the other roofs and similar in tile shape.
Okay, I'll rescind that to say that the tile that the owner is proposing does not meet our guidelines, SFDB guidelines, as far as keeping consistency in the neighborhood. So we recommend that you change the tile to the burnt orange color and the rounded edge configuration to be more consistent with the rest of the homes within the PUD.
Okay, that's your motion?
That is my motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Then we have a second of the motion. Is there further discussion to the
Yes,
motion?
can we change it from burnt orange to similar color? Don't make it a specific
Yes.
color.
Similar color.
Acceptable to the second of the motion? Who seconded?
Bernie.
Bernie. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Similar color? Okay. That's the corrected motion on the floor. Is there further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. So you'll need to come back with a new tile color and a new tile shape. Okay? Excuse me. And before we quit, and we already made a motion, so we're going to need a second motion because you didn't include it in the first one, and I apologize because I forgot to warn you. Will they be coming back to the full board or to the consent calendar?
You will come back to the consent calendar.
Okay, so that's a motion. So do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion to that motion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So you'll come back to the two people that review consent calendar.
Would
Okay.
that be a short order thing? Because
What's that? You'll need to work with Katie on the scheduling. Okay. You need to work with Katie.
It's like we were before.
Yes, it's that
Yeah,
kind
you'll
of
be
thing.
coming, if you come back, if you're able to get on next week's agenda, you'll be seeing Denise and I. If not, it'll goes out to whoever's on the consent calendar. Okay? Okay, I'm going to hand that back to you. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's get ready to go to, right on time, 11:35 Harbor Hills Drive. This is a new item, so while the applicant's moving forward, I'm going to read into the record the project description. This is a proposal for an addition and remodel of an existing one-story single-family residence to include 162 square foot addition, 519 square foot residence addition, new covered patio, entry pergola, and landscaping. Other site improvements include a re-roof, a change of exterior finishes, and new doors and windows. Staff hearing officer's review is requested for front and interior setback modifications. Proposed total of 2,999 square feet on a 10,454 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is a 79% of the maximum floor to lot area ratio. This is here for comments only because it requires a staff hearing officer review and must comply with Tier 3 stormwater management requirements.
Harbor Hills. Okay.
So, Mr. Oshner, if you could
Oh, there it is.
introduce yourself, please.
Good evening. My name is Tom Oxner, project architect.
Since this is a new project, could you share with us what you're proposing?
Okay, so what we've got is we've got up on Harbor Hills Road. Let's get us acquainted with the neighborhood. This is a hillside district up high that looks right down over, obviously, the harbor and then over to the west. It's really a dramatic view. It's a hillside district. There's an existing one-story home on the 8,000 square foot lot. It's a hipped roof structure. Harbor Hills here, it slopes a flat pad, and then it slopes down and includes a little bit of this hillside below it, not much. The property line is pretty close to that point. These parcels step down this way as well. This property is about 7.5 feet above this one, and this is, the photos might tell you better, maybe 5 feet or 6 feet below this one. So these photos give you a good idea from the street. The existing garage is really a one-car garage, and so part of the modification, and you'll see it in the site plan, is to allow for the increase of the width of the garage because a portion of it sits within the front yard setback. I'm going to move to some photos here. And I'm going to come back to these photos. I'm going to go to the site plan here first. So this is the existing site plan. And so you can see we've got a one-car garage that sits out in front of the setback a bit. And so the modification is to widen that up. As you can see along the east side here, we also have a portion of the house which sits a little bit beyond that setback as well. So the proposed site plan is to maintain the existing one-story house and the hipped roof and to reconfigure the interior of this area. The bedrooms are back here, reconfigure this into a living area, and then put a master suite off to the west here, take advantage of the view. And then, of course, to widen the garage, just make room for the required open yard in this area here and provide for a covered pergola from the entry street, holding the pergola back away from the front yard setback. So in terms, I'm going to come back to the photos. Keep going here. So the existing floor plan is, you can see the bedrooms are back again. This is the street back here. So the bedrooms are back here, and the living area is out here. The idea is to turn this into the living area and then add onto this area and create a nice master suite for the couple who purchased the property and want to enjoy the view of the harbor as well as the sunset to the west. So the existing roof, it's a hipped roof. It has a little hipped gable, which we're looking to take off. These just kind of show the existing roof plan. These are elevations of the existing house. You can see it's an 8-foot plate, pretty standard, simple slab construction. Very simple. The proposed plan looks to create this open space at the interior and then a master suite here and still retain the 2 bedrooms to the north, as well as widening the garage up to meet the standard city's requirements. It's a voluntary thing. We're not exceeding the 50%, but they want to have a usable garage, and then putting some storage off to the back, and then maintaining some open space between the garage and the master suite. The concept here is to keep the 8-foot plate except for the center area, which becomes this open kind of a pavilion feeling, and extend the ceilings to the outside lanai area, a little bit of an island feel. So this is the the new roof comes out this way. This is the 10-foot plate. I mean, the 9-foot plate is in this area, and then the master bathroom steps down to an 8-foot plate further to the west. And in terms of the elevations, so the south elevation, this is actually what am I looking at here? So the south elevation.
This is the street. This the street?
No. That's the back of the garage.
Oh, back of the garage. Yeah, there's the garage. You come in this one. Okay, gotcha.
Right. So we've got so this is the ocean-facing side with the raised plate. You can see it's bumped up, and we've got the open terrace beyond it. And as it progresses down, this is the new wing area off here. So this is the master bathroom. This is the corner of the bedroom, and then the plate jumps up to the center high ceiling over the living space. This is a side view of that new pergola, which runs from the front back. And then this is the street view here. Looking at, there's the expanded 2-car garage. The idea, these roofs continue right now across. The idea is to open that up with that pergola, bring a little bit of light in from the eave line, between the eave line and the roof line. The existing chimney along the east would stay, and it would and the roof would bump up about a foot, and it should be able to maintain that existing chimney height. So this is a roof plan. Shows the existing roof area here. This hip gets created to put in this pergola, and then this area is the addition, and then this is the higher plate along here. See, I've got some sections. I want to go back. There was some neighborhood concerns, and I made an exhibit to try to give you a better feel of the site. So let's see, okay, so we're looking, here we go to the south. We call it the south. This parcel is above it, and that existing home looks like this one right here. So the yellow here shows I put story poles up, and I connected the dots in Photoshop to try to help you understand the situation. On the site here, this is the addition as it's coming out. This is the portion that matches the 8-foot plate, and then as well as the bathroom, which comes out and hits that same height. So let's see here. Yeah, you know what? That yellow, it's on the wrong property.
It's on the wrong property.
It is.
This is
Yes.
the
You're
property.
exactly right, Joe. Yeah. Okay, so this is the subject parcel, and this is that house right there. Okay, exactly.
And these photos are taken from where?
Okay, so those photos are taken from inside the neighboring property.
That's these windows right here.
Exactly. So
That's these windows.
So this kind of gives you an idea as you look. Okay, here we go. So these are the windows as they move back deeper into the property. So to give you an idea of what those visuals look and what it might do to the view of this house if it were to try to retain as much as possible. I think the roof lines still retain the ocean and the addition. It's only an 8-foot plate with a, those are based on the story poles that I put out there. I just connected the dots with the yellow. So yeah, I think that gives a little bit of the feel of what the view concerns might be. And the project would end up being 79% of the FAR, so it's about a 520 square foot addition to the living space and about 160 some square foot addition to the garage. It does require 2 modifications, so I'm looking for comments on that. And again, the modifications are to allow for a widened garage in the front yard setback, a widened garage in the front yard, and to this plate height here would bump up a foot. It doesn't, the existing walls would remain the same, but we're hoping to get a little bit of volume for that ceiling. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before we go to questions and comments from the board, Katie, is there any zoning or other information we need to know?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I've got one letter or one email, and then I have 3 speakers. So you each have 2 minutes if you could come forward. James Scarfite? Scafidi, is that what it is? You come up and use this microphone, please.
Yes. No.
No, I'm going to have you one at a time. You each have 2 minutes to address the board. So
I have my notes.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, my name is Jim Scafidi. I represent the neighbor who is Nancy Engstrom, who lives at 141 Harbor Drive. That is the view in question.
Okay.
There are 2 aspects that we are concerned about, and Nancy is here to talk about this in more detail with you, so you can talk to her about it. First, there are setback issues with the proposed project, and the reason that those setback issues become important is because they relate to the view corridor. Now, I'm aware that, as I've been to these meetings before, Mr. Chairman, and you've identified that there's no inherent right to a view. However, I would remind the board that the guidelines require that first, there's a good neighbor policy. We're in the Hillside District, and that view considerations be made. There are photographs that are attached to the back of the letter, which are taken from Nancy's viewpoints. The story poles themselves, I'm not really sure they indicate the accurate roof line, but if you even look at the first photograph that's attached to my letter, you can see that her entire harbor view will be completely obliterated by the plan. Now, I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't be able to build something, and we don't have a problem with the size of the project. It's where they're locating it. If they could just relocate it in a way that would least impact her view, we'd be most appreciative of that. And that consideration, Nancy has offered to pay for the cost of redesign to achieve that objective, so at least part of that cost anyway. So we're trying to reach out and work with the applicants. We want to be good neighbors. We're not trying to be obstructionists, but we're trying to find something that meets everybody's needs.
Okay, thank you. Before you leave, I do have one question on these photographs. I think you said look at the first photograph. This is taken from a window?
Yes. Nancy could tell you where they were taken from because she took the pictures.
And she's speaking?
And she's
All
next.
right, I'll ask her when she gets here.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Is this another letter?
That Kathy just received in her inbox today, and it's for this item.
All right, I'll read that into the record here in a minute. Okay, so Nancy Engstrom? Yes. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Nancy Engstrom, and I reside at 1141 Harbor Hills Drive, which is located directly adjacent to the proposed remodel and addition. I'm coming before you today to express the concerns that my entire family and I have regarding the negative impact that this project will have on the forever future of our family home. Since my new neighbors, the Millingtons, are not living in their new home, the first I heard of the project was when I received a letter on my door from Tom Oshner, the architect. Upon inspecting the plans of the city, I immediately contacted Tom, and we met at my home, at which time I offered to pay for new plans if a compromise could be worked out. This has been our family home for over 34 years. We purchased it for the same reason as everyone else on our block, for the breathtaking multi-million-dollar views these homes offer of the city, the nightlights, Riviera, mountain, harbor, and ocean. My primary concerns are the size and location of the master bath addition, any new landscaping, and the large palm tree plant for the back patio. I would also like to verify the height of the story poles. I am requesting that a third-party architect review the plans with an impartial perspective and perhaps come up with an alternate and mutually agreeable design. I am willing to pay for the new plans. It is heartbreaking now when I look out my windows each day and night and imagine that this majestic gift we have treasured for all these years could disappear forever. As Ms. Bernstein stated in excerpts from her article in this month's November issue of the Mesa paper entitled Sharing Cupcakes with Your Neighbor, homes are built or remodeled to suit the changing needs and lifestyles of new and existing residents. As a result, neighborhood character gradually changes over time. More specifically, according to our community development guidelines, what your new neighbors build or what your existing neighbor wants to design are more likely to maintain a desirable living environment when they are sited such that they do not block light and views for other existing homes and minimize privacy impacts to surrounding properties. I couldn't agree with her more.
Okay.
Out of our guidelines.
Excuse me. The comments are to the
Okay.
public at this point. Okay. Okay, thank you. And is that essentially what I just received, correct?
This is a letter.
Is this different than that letter?
This is a letter that I submitted to the homeowners.
Okay. Oh, this is a different letter.
This is a copy of the letter that I submitted to the board.
Okay, so that's the letter I just got handed, so I'm going to give you that
Okay.
back. And the letter you just read is this letter, correct?
No,
Okay, this is a different letter.
that is
Okay,
the
are
letter
you
that I have
submitting that?
submitted to the homeowners.
Okay, but you're not submitting it to the city.
I gave it, yes, I gave a copy to the city, but I don't know if you had yet received it.
Okay.
So that's why I
Katie,
brought you a
don't-
copy of
I don't-
that.
Is that a different letter? I mean,
The only letter I have is the
was
one
this
that
letter?
Kathy
So we
received.
didn't.
You have not yet
we didn't
received
get that.
this,
Okay.
but you will be receiving a CC of it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Excuse me. I do have one question before you leave, because your attorney wasn't able to answer. This picture was taken from which window? If you could.
That picture is taken from the,
That's your house right here. So there's your windows. So can you tell which window it was taken from? That's this photograph right here. So there's.
this one is taken from the laundry room of my house.
So your laundry room is down in here somewhere?
Mr. Chairman, if you could look at the last page of the pictures, there's an indication of where all the windows are.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't go far.
Try to help you. That's okay.
Oops, last page. That's my last page? Okay.
Yes, so the far window on
window
the
here?
left is the kitchen window, then the next one is the one
Okay,
on the
and that's where this picture was taken?
No, that window is in my laundry room.
Okay, so that's your line. Okay, thank you. That's what I need to know.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have, let's see, Holmick? Hudson?
Yeah.
If you could come forward, please. You need to speak into that.
Just going to wave my time and just wave the time.
Speak into that microphone, please.
Just like to echo the sentiments of the previous two speakers, and I'm going to just waive my right to say anything
Okay.
more.
And where do you
I live on the Lower Riviera in another hillside district.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? Okay, before we close, I want to make sure that I got there is a letter that we all, I think, received or an email from an Ira and Leslie Levy. They're apparently on the home below here. They're concerned, as I recall, about the size of the existing fireplace and that it doesn't change and get higher. And they're also commenting about the proposed palm tree and blowing palm fronds into their yard. Okay. So, Katie, as far as I know, I think that's all. Is that everything?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand those back to you. The chair is then going to close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions and comments.
What's the roof material?
Good question. I forgot my sample. It is a Galvalume, a low sheen Galvalume standing seam roof, and I left the sample, but that's what I'm proposing.
Okay.
I'm still questioning when pictures were taken from what windows. I know it's looking this way, but
Okay, so when I was standing, the way that these work
this is the southwest elevation. This is the southeast elevation.
Yeah.
And It seems to me that
See this diagram, Joe?
There is a
So-
three-dimensional
I can show you
piece of the house.
which window goes where. So if we start with the deepest one, let's just start with the deepest one. This is the back, and I think, that's the laundry room one. So if you look out,
That's
when I
back,
was
one of these.
Okay, well, let me ask a specific question. Is the that's the way I need to answer it. Is the view for this house, the main windows, all the main picture windows, the bedrooms, the living room, everything, going straight out southwest?
Absolutely.
And these pictures are taken
from the side here of
from
the
the
view,
side
looking
view, not
over the property.
Yeah, these,
Right there. Those are the
they
side
show in
views.
two places. One here, that window. Whoops, those window. That's part of the porch. That window, this window, and that window. That's five.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And they're all out of the southwest,
Yeah, and
southeast
That
side of
corner right there is this corner, and you can't even see, well, you can
Right,
barely
and
see
this photograph is taken from the laundry room window, which is one of these two back here. Okay.
And I was standing at normal
I'm
height
sorry.
when I took the
This is the discussion now is to the board. Thank you.
I didn't interrupt. I just
Okay, thank you.
allowed to look.
Yes, you're allowed to.
It's okay.
You're allowed to
Can't
look.
even get out.
Okay.
Honest mistake. Honest mistake.
Okay. Other questions?
No,
That's it?
That's my question.
Okay. Can you explain to us about the palm tree thing?
Yes.
So
So it's actually my idea. It doesn't sound like it's a good one.
So is it there now?
No, it's proposed to bring
It was
some.
just on
it's
there.
to-
It was on there. You just passed it
Yeah,
out.
I've got an opening to
One
backlight the covered lanai right in here, and the idea is to create an opening and to get some greenery up into it. But
Oh, so you were going to put a opening in the roof?
yeah,
And then okay,
exactly, which would add a little bit of backlighting to this portion of the lanai and give it a little purpose. And maybe it doesn't have to be a big.
gotcha. And at this point, we're early in the process. So, are you proposing any landscaping, or what's the thought behind landscaping?
We don't have a landscape plan yet. There are some opportunities, although it's pretty well landscaped around the perimeter, but there are some opportunities in here to do that.
Is this all? It's all on one floor.
Yes.
You don't step up, don't step down. And this is 10 foot through here, but 8 foot here.
Yes, it's 8. Although all this hatched area is
Is
an
8
8-foot
feet.
plate with a 3-inch long pitch, so it's about as low as it gets.
And in general, I know you're early in the process. Coloring of the house. Have you talked about a roof color?
Yeah, it would be the roof color would be you see that sort of that zinc aluminum look. It's kind of a gray
color?
Yeah, and again, I've got a sample that I'm prepared to show you. What the existing roof is. What is the existing roof?
It's a tile. And the body color of the house in general?
Probably a bit of a deeper color. The idea is to get
A deeper gray?
we hadn't gone over that with
Okay.
the owners
And
yet.
the window frames you're keeping, or you're changing?
All
those
new
out?
windows, yeah.
So, and those will have some color?
Those would
There'll
have
be a
some
clad
color, and there
window?
would be a thin framed, probably a metal clad.
Okay. Other questions?
What is this? Is that a
That's
wall
a
between?
Yeah, that's a wall. I think
Between the properties? Or the?
up higher on the neighboring property.
This house, that house sits higher than
It
this.
seems to me that are these story poles correct?
That's not,
Okay,
is that a story pole?
that story pole represents the height of the ridge. I had to put it up to, but it's actually there's no roof even.
There's no roof there.
No.
Right.
So
it's
that's
over.
deceiving. It's
It
you're really
is,
not.
because I couldn't get on the roof. I did it. I
look
trying
at that and I think, oh, that's what's going to block. The story pole's blocking the whole harbor.
But even if it was there, that's not the actual photo from that position. I couldn't find anything inside of the house when I was standing there where the proposed story poles would block an ocean view. So I'm not sure.
Is that a story pole?
That's
Yeah,
a story
this one?
pole.
That's right. That's that one right
It's
there.
that one right there.
That's deceiving.
Okay.
To me,
I'm not sure where that photo's
to me, it's deceiving to me because you're telling me that you're blocking their whole harbor all the way up to Montecito, and you're
These are
really
the-
not.
Joe, these are the photos that I took when I was inside after the story poles were placed.
Okay, other questions? Who has other questions? This is here for comments only, because it still requires the staff hearing officer for review, and obviously stormwater tree management plan. And just to remind everyone, the modifications are to allow for an expansion of the garage that's in the front setback. As you recall, this is probably, and I'm not sure, staff would have to confirm, this is when they did the 1975 down zone, they changed all the setbacks. So all of a sudden you have these houses that have problems. So the second modification, correct me, but as I heard, the second modification is to allow this fireplace to remain as is, and that this piece of the roof would be raised a foot to align with the proposed raised roof in the center of the house, and then obviously the configuration of the garage doors and the garage on this front. So those are the two modifications, and I'm assuming the applicant, at least initially, is requesting positive comments in order to go to the staff hearing officer, but that's, we have to make the call of whether they're positive or negative. So with that, let's go to comments, if there are no more questions.
I have comments, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The previous project and the impact of the roof. I couldn't support a standing metal gray looking roof at all in this neighborhood. I would feel more comfortable if it was a tile, curved tile, some type that's a orange or just for that context of the neighborhood. And I think the design is good, but I think maybe pushing it back a little bit, just reducing it a little bit so you're not sticking out. The palm tree, I think, is not a good idea because you're a sensitive view corridor area. Those are my comments.
Other comments?
I agree with Brian.
Okay, do we have other comments?
I agree with those comments as well, and I know you said the front yard is landscape.
I would encourage landscaping because it's all ivy and hedges that need to be maintained with a hedge trimmer that want to be 20 feet tall that are 6 feet. So just my comment.
Okay.
Your plate heights, sorry, this is more of a question. Your plate heights are for the new height is 10 feet.
So it's 10 feet. Over the center portion.
Over the center portion and the front and the view portion
But
of your
all
house.
the new proposed square footage is 8-foot plate.
Okay, except on the
Except on the covered area.
fireplace side, it's jumping to what?
It's 10 feet.
Is it 10 feet
Right,
or
that's the
9
existing
feet?
area. Yeah, that's
In other words, you're moving the roof up to 10 feet over the viewport of the living room, but the addition of the house is staying at 8.
Right.
That's 8, and there is 9.
No. It's coming up to 10.
Oh, plate height, because the eave is at 9. That's the way the eave is dropping. So it actually, the bottom of the eave appears to be at 9, but the plate is at 10. That's why.
This is the roof line, and this shows it a little better. So the existing portion of the house is here. This is the new portion.
Sure.
So this will have an 8-foot plate. There's a continuation of the existing roof. In this area here, I want to bump that eave up to 9.
Okay.
Okay.
The eave to 9, the plate is at 10, but the slope.
Okay, well, you're mixing up. Yeah. We've got 8-foot plates and we have 10-foot plates. We're not. We don't need to put eaves in there.
Yeah. That's kind of where we're headed. Okay. Other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I agreed also with Brian. I just would like a little bit of clarification on pushing back a little bit.
Oh, on the master bedrooms?
Yeah.
I think it needs to be pulled back a few feet.
So in other words, reduce it back a few feet, and that would allow the neighbor to have more opening space there and maybe make them happier.
Right, exactly.
So let me show you what we can do. I just want everyone to be aware of the restraints with the open yard.
Are there any of those?
Oh, there's a. This is where I have that. So there's. So the required open yard, as you know, needs a 20-foot minimum.
So we're talking about this piece.
Master bath.
That's the master bath. The master bedroom is over here. Okay. So other comments? Okay. I'll go to my comments. I agree with my colleagues. The master bath is too big. It could be brought in considerably. That's a very luxurious master bath, and I think a few feet out of that wouldn't hurt at all. With regards to the views, and legal counsel is certainly heard me before talk about the review process this board has over views. First of all, our our top priority is maintaining view corridors from the public right-of-way. So we look at that as from the street, from the front of the house, et cetera. How does that affect the general neighborhood in terms of the view corridor? Secondly, we look at privacy issues in terms of views. In other words, windows, looking into windows of other homes. That's always very important to us. However, the city attorney has advised us we're not obligated to guarantee a view out of any single window, be it a laundry room or a main living room. And so in looking at the submitted photographs and looking at the photographs submitted by the applicant, one of the dilemmas this board has when that's done is that everybody uses the camera differently. And unless we're able to actually stand there and look at it, it's hard for us to determine whether these camera angles are actually legitimate, because sometimes folks use telephoto lenses, sometimes they don't. I can also tell you we have gone on to homes, visited neighbors' homes, and stood in the windows and looked out at story poles. And to some degree, you would like to think that there's an objective decision made about what can be seen and what can't be seen. But sometimes it's going to get down to the subjective eye of each one of us as board members. And they can all weigh in. I've looked at what's been presented. I went out to the site. I didn't walk on any private property. I never do. I always maintain unless it's been given permission, I always look at properties from the roadways or the sidewalks. And I don't see anything in this project that really, really jeopardizes your views. I really don't. Yes, it'd be lovely if I always had every view I ever had when I bought the house, but you know what? Neighbors change, neighborhoods change. I don't see anything here that presents a dilemma to the views. Now, having said that, I do agree with my colleagues that the house can be reduced in size at the master bath very easily, because the master bath, in my view, is pretty luxurious in terms of square footage. So I think that could come down, but I really don't think this is going to present an overwhelming view issue for the adjacent homeowners. Just to remind everyone, we did look at a house, I believe it's this house down here that was reviewed. There's work that's going to be done. I think it's this house here, because there's still the sign, the yellow sign is still up. We looked at this, where is that driveway? Yeah, this driveway over here. We've looked at that house before. We actually, I think, looked at that house. So we're familiar with this. We've looked at several homes in this neighborhood. So I think that we're going to get there. I think that in the end, your view is not going to be affected dramatically. We've seen too many other projects where the views do get affected dramatically, and we do take that into consideration. Certainly the palm tree, I think, idea probably should go away. I agree with my colleagues. With regards to the other neighbors that were concerned about the height of the fireplace and the roof, I see a solution there to bring the edge of that eave roof down a little bit, back to where it is on that side where the fireplace is. It makes your roof a little more complicated, but I think there's a little better solution there, but I'll leave that up for you to study. So at the end game, I think that I could support certainly the aesthetic elements of the modification, both at the fireplace side, which is this is Project what? East, I guess? Project East. Yeah, Project East. And certainly can support the aesthetic changes to the garage, which is Project West, I guess it is. Northwest. So cattywampus. So let me get to where's your sketches? Oh, here we go. Yeah, and I too agree with my colleagues. I think a standing seam roof. We have a real dilemma with standing seam roofs. We get a lot of requests for them, but when we have areas that are seen from all over the city, and I know they say, well, they're non-glare, whatever, but they have a sheen to it, and it does make a difference when we look across the city. When I look out these windows up to the Riviera, and if I had windows over here, we'd be looking right toward where this house is. I'm in agreement with my colleagues that the standing seam is probably not the appropriate application. I do see that the house next door does have a gray roof, at least according to this aerial photograph. So I'm not sure the color is a big issue from my perspective, given the fact we have gray roofs several places. But I think the standing seam is not appropriate.
I have my
Okay,
comment.
yes, other comments.
Gray roof tends to be industrial, but the roof plan. If there was some possibility, Tom, that you could simplify your roof, too, it's a little goofy. I don't know, that's not the right word, but I mean, this is.
Yeah, the whole idea there is to create a high volume that connects that space, and because the
Right.
house has that angle already,
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually worked on that quite a bit to
I bet
get
you
it just to
have.
that.
Yeah. Maybe some California framing can do it, so it'll look less
Yeah.
pits, and you know what I'm saying. This is what simplified it.
All right.
Okay. Other comments? Okay. This is only here for comments. We cannot take action. Just so you understand how this process works, this is only here for comments today. We can either give the applicant comments that are positive so that he can proceed to the staff hearing officer, which is another public hearing, which also has an appealable decision at a point in that process. If he does choose to do that and we choose to encourage him to do that, then he would only return to the board after he's gone to the staff hearing officer process, which I now understand is going well into January or February at this point in terms of schedule. Following that, when he does return to us, we would review it for what we call project approval. That's where we are in general in agreement with the approach of and colors and the general kind of idea of what they're doing. We will theoretically, we could give approval to that. If we do give it approval, then that has a 10-day appeal period. The appeal goes directly to the city council. Following that process, it comes back to us for final approval when the applicant has completed a complete set of documents that have to then be reviewed by our board. At that point, we are only looking at detailing to make sure that it coincides and agrees with the general design we approved at the previous meeting. That is also an appealable decision. Okay. With that said, the chair would look for a motion for comments only.
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
I move that we continue the project indefinitely and coming back to the full board with following comments. One that we would like to see you reduce the size of the master bathroom, master bedroom wing area, and rework the roof, the new roof over the existing part of the house. And I think the board agrees that that the two on the northwest, the garage modification is acceptable, and the northeast, where the fireplace, the modification is acceptable there. And I would like to, if we're going to have story poles, the story poles are put up.
Okay. We can't take that action until they return for approval, for project design approval. Then we can determine whether or not we want to do story poles.
Tell them I said it. That's it.
Okay. Does the maker of the motion want to make any statement about landscaping?
The palm tree.
Palm tree, I would like to have.
There's going to be some new stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to see the palm tree removed. I think the board is in agreement with that. And then some landscaping in the areas that are void of landscaping and that you are changing, especially in the front portico area and the back and around the new master bedroom, master bath area. I don't think we need landscaping the total project, just the areas that are being affected by the remodel and the additions.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll
Yes.
second. And
Yes.
I'd like to ask the board or the maker of the motion if it could practice the good neighbor guidelines once you have that reduction in the size of the bathroom. If possibly you could meet with your neighbor and hopefully get this resolved.
I'll reposition the story poles to account for it.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
Change my motion.
Okay, wait a minute, let me get sorted out. So you're adding a friendly amendment to your motion that basically says we would like you to practice good neighbor guidelines by meeting with the neighbors after you've made modifications.
Correct.
Before you come back to us.
Correct.
Okay, so is that clear? Is that acceptable to the second of the motion? Okay. All right, now.
I just didn't understand what you said about the roof.
Oh, yeah, I just asked
Brian
to
put
be
a
simplified,
comment in
not
about
simplify
simplify
it.
it.
Just simplify it.
There's a lot of
Say no standing.
there's a lot of things happening that
I'm
don't
going
need
to try
to
to
happen.
simplify that stretch that you.
Right.
I know what
he knows what I'm talking
Okay,
about.
I know
but,
what
but,
Brian's
but what
talking
was not what was omitted was about that the board does not appreciate a standing seam
Support.
metal roof or
Oh,
support.
and I didn't.
You didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
Do you want to add that?
Yes, I would like to add that the board does not
Support a standing
standing seam roof.
Okay, is that acceptable to the second of the
Yes.
motion? That's an addition. Kathleen, you got that? Okay, does everyone understand the motion? Any further discussion to the motion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention, so carried. So we'll see you back after you're at staff hearing.
I need a little clarification.
Yes.
For when the minutes come out, I
Yes.
heard really the master bath is luxurious, not necessarily the entire master suite. Is that
Right.
Push it back like a couple feet.
Okay? Okay. And you can decide whether you want to come back to us before you go to staff hearing officer to show that reduction.
I don't know what's going on.
Because the staff hearing is only addressing the two modifications, so we'll leave that up to you.
Did we talk about that?
Okay?
Did we talk about, oh, we did talk about
But the comments, these comments are good enough if I do choose to go to the staff hearing officer now.
Yeah, because the staff hearing officer is only going to be focused on the fireplace and the garage.
Right.
That's all they look at. They're not going to be looking at the rest of the project.
Yeah.
So that's kind of up to your decision. Okay? All right. I'm going to declare a 5-minute recess just because we've been sitting here for a
Did
few
we
hours.
vote? Did we?
Okay,
We'll
ready?
talk more when we have time.
Okay, I'm going to. Okay, Chair's going to bring back to order the number 14, 2016 Single Family Design Board. We're at item number 6, 237 San Clemente. This is a new item, so I'll read into the record the project description. This is a proposal to demolish an existing 1,544 square foot, one-story single-family residence and construct a new 1,967 square foot, two-story single-family residence. The proposal also includes a new two-story detached 550 square foot garage with a 280 square foot accessory structure above to be used as an exercise room. Other site improvements include a new driveway, retaining wall, and decks on both residence and accessory structure. The proposed total of 2,730 square feet on an 8,049 square foot lot located in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone is 85% of the maximum floor to lot area ratio. This is here for comments only because it still requires a project tier 3 stormwater management compliance and coastal review. If you could introduce yourself, please.
My name is Tom Oxner, project architect.
And if you could show us what you're doing.
Okay, we've got an 8,000 square foot parcel on San Clemente. San Clemente is right below Cliff Drive, between Cliff Drive and Shoreline, a little up higher and halfway down. The property, there's an existing one-story slab on grade, older home. It's not in great condition. And the property, it's got a subtle slope, and that increases towards the back of the property, towards the west back of the property. So if we look at the site photos, we can see that it's a small hipped roof structure, and it's the rear. It's a pretty large property. It's over 8,000 square feet, and what we're looking to do is to take it down and redevelop it from scratch with a new home. And the new site plan, what the owners would like to do is to separate the garage from the house and create a wide area that they can bring their bicycles and things in, and kind of use the back as a accessible to vehicles and so forth. So what we've done is we've detached the garage, and we're proposing a small accessory structure above it. Of course, all of that is included in the FAR. It's an 80. We're right at the 85%. So position the house to accommodate for the curb cut, so that we don't have to redo that. But that puts the house on the sensitive north side. So I've designed the house to gesture away from the solar access ordinance requirement. And as far as the plan goes, no huge master bathrooms here, just relatively modest. We've got covered. Yeah, what this does do, I want to point that out, it's a little unusual for a site design, is to put a deck out into the front yard, but a very low, just a 2-foot high low wall. The owners wanted to have a very inviting front porch that was kind of barrier free, but still had a little sense of space towards the street. And I think that meets the requirements of the front yard. I mean, I haven't heard any reason why it doesn't. It does attach to the building, but if that becomes an issue, we would simply just take down that low 2-foot high wall. So it's just an open plan. There's a rear deck in the back as well. The upstairs has a master suite and a sunroom, which doubles as sort of a space that can be enjoyed by not just the private master suite. The idea is to create a sunroom that isn't a part of the master bedroom, but can also be enjoyed by in entertaining and the rest of the family. They want to orient both towards the backyard and the front yard. So it's a 3-bedroom, basically. The accessory structure is a 500 net square foot garage, and the laundry would be located in that structure. And we've got then a small exercise room above it with an exterior stairway and a deck facing the house direction. In terms of the architecture, kind of a beach feel, Cape Codish beach feel with the hardy shingles and comp shingle, hardy shingle siding, comp shingle roof. We've got the white trim and the big windows. The idea is to, again, create that front open feel that's very inviting from the street. Trying to get the structure to gesture down from that north side. So we're putting the second-story bulk back towards the middle of the property. Trying to get a spiral staircase on the back to invite the activities up to that rear deck and create a space up there that can enjoy the views and still have access from both inside and outside. The way the interior stairs, they also access it, but independent of having to go through the master. And so you can see on the garage, because of the slope, it tends to cut down into the existing grade back there. So there's a little bit of cutting that'll take place to get the garage down to where it's not towering over the house. And that would share the same vocabulary as the main house would. And that's kind of it.
Okay, thank you. Right. Before we go to the board, Katie, did we receive any communication?
No, Mr. Chair, we did not.
Anyone in the audience wishing to address the project? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. This is here for comments only, because they've still got to do stormwater and coastal review. Questions? Yes.
What are the trees that you are removing? I don't see pictures or.
Oh, are we? Let me look at the trees right here.
You can
let's
see
see. What are those
in your aerial that they're rather large. And like the
notice.
Garage will, the new garage will get rid of those.
Oh, they're actually
they're in the aerial. That was older photo.
Yeah, they're citrus.
Yeah.
So look on the aerial. Right here.
You can see it on the photo
Right in the middle.
He's got a picture of that corner. Yeah. And they're just.
I can tell you that because I was in the backyard.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just amazed you can
Because
tell.
it turned out I happened to go on the day that the owner was driving up and unloading his car, and he said, "Gee, do you want to see anything?" And I said, "If it's okay." He said, "Oh, I want to show you the backyard." So we walked back there, and those are pretty sad-looking, one sad-looking citrus, and the other one looked kind of okay, but
Okay, thanks.
not in good shape. Okay, other questions?
Chair?
Yes.
I was just adding up the numbers, and I came out with, instead of a proposed total of 2730, I came up with 2797. So I'll do the math again, but that was just something that
Are those all net numbers?
I just added up the numbers that are in the description.
It's possible that the numbers on the plans they may have got transposed maybe.
So maybe we can figure that out.
Just in general, I did have a question about the square footage, only because I was trying to get a handle on, did we put down the amount of square footage of deck? Not that deck, but this deck, that deck, and that deck. Do we know what those are?
I don't have those.
The
I don't have those on the
deck
description at
sizes.
this time.
Okay.
Right, that was
And
another
then
question.
when I was out there with the owner, he was quite proud to show me the fact that this wall here is nicely painted and stucco over to about right here. And then, for some reason, the conversation went somewhere else, and I forgot to ask him, are you considering, this fence appears to be built by that owner, and this fence I couldn't tell. So is he talking about?
Yeah, he's talking about putting a hedge along the side here. He wants some privacy from his driveway to that property line, and he talked about bringing it up to about right there.
And so at this point, we don't have a landscape plan to show that, okay?
No.
And then on your proposed driveway, have you had transportation looked at this yet?
No, but there's turnaround space for that.
Okay. And then, you don't have to have a mod for this porch in the front? No?
Well, I've done this a few times now, and if it's not a structure, and it meets the heights of the fences and so forth, and the step,
So this is filled in.
I mean, it's a question mark because if there's a slight separation between this and the house, then technically it's not a structure of the building. But it depends on the case. If it comes up, I'll just remove that lower 2 foot.
But at this point, you don't think you have to do that? Okay.
I don't think so.
And then okay. So all of this theoretically looked like it's going to be wood, and you said hardy shakes and so forth and so on. The staircase appears to be metal of some sort?
That would be metal, yes.
Mr. Chair, if I can just
Yes.
comment, I
Yes.
have the marked up plans that Michelle did the
okay.
plan check on, and she just put notes on here to provide site sections to verify that the proposed front entry porch deck does not exceed 10 inches in height above grade within the required front setback. So if you can verify that it's not above 10 inches, then it should be okay.
Above existing grade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
And if it's above that, then would he have to get a mod?
Or drop it to
keep
10
that
inches.
there, yes.
Or
You
drop it
can't
to 10 inches? Okay, gotcha. And then, and that was the only comment you had that we need to know about?
I can give you the other set that she marked up, but these ones are.
Okay.
You'd like to look at them.
Yeah, when you have a minute, bring that down. We'll take a quick look at it. I also wanted to look at, so that staircase is accessed from, where am I looking at?
Yeah.
Oh, right here, okay. So you go up this way. So that's a complete internal staircase
Right.
there. And if you go back to your site plan, that spiral staircase is over here.
Right there. Yeah.
Right there. And the other staircase coming up internally is right in here, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, and the deck above, whoops. So this deck above here, there's still roof element over here.
Right.
Okay,
Yes,
so
that's
that's
about
when we look at the front elevation, that's this guy.
Yeah, you can see it from the rear. That's
Okay.
that roof section.
Okay, so back over here. Okay.
And there's also a deck here, right? So there's
Right.
3 decks.
There's
And
the deck out front. and the deck in the back. Okay. All right. Other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Does that, your section, or your elevations don't, well, right here we have a difference of.
Because this is going back up. The back of the yard goes up to a high point.
Is that area around, where's the driveway is sunk in site plan, or
That's not a deck, that's a porch.
So the driveway.
so the driveway is sunk in from the yard.
Not much. See, because here's the first grade that really starts to change right here. So the land is kind of going up gently till
just
about
not
right
much,
here, and then
not
right
much.
there it starts to rise.
So that's
pretty
why this
sharply.
is 98 and this is 98.5.
Yeah.
So it's not really much.
Yeah. But it, by the time you get back here, it does get out.
Okay.
And how do you get out of the garage?
Well, there's a
Back
two
out.
overhead doors, and then there's I think there's through the laundry area.
There's a door on the side. So
Car get out of the garage?
So
it's backed out into this.
Backs out.
That's what I was just asking about.
Yep.
That's this turnaround right here. See that?
Yeah.
Okay, so they back out, turn, and go out.
Backs out. 3-point, yeah. Yeah, pretty common there. A lot of garages are like that.
Okay. Other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
As you look at the east elevation here, the colored front, the one that shows the house, and then the driveway sort of fades back there. In essence, what you're going to see as you look directly down there is the second story mass that's the garage. So it's going to really look more massive than it is.
It's way back there, though. You'd have to
Way
look
back.
at
I
it
mean, is
straight
the
on.
depth gonna make up for the?
I will
yeah.
make a comment in a minute.
Okay.
But
You know what I'm trying to say.
What's the plate height of the garage?
Let's see. It's 9-foot floor to floor, so it's an 8-foot
foot.
ceiling in the garage.
Okay, and then the second story
Is an 8-foot plate.
Just take these numbers, right?
And then the slope of your roof is an 8 and 12.
On the main house, yes, there's two slopes. The steeper one is an 8 and 12, and then there's a shallower one for the porch roofing. That's a 3 and 12. Yeah,
in the main house, you have a 10-foot floor to floor, so that's the ceiling is 9 feet.
9 feet at the main house. Yeah.
And then what's it for? Where do you have it? Second floor is what?
I need to keep it at 8 feet to get the height. The pitch of the roof is a function of my 25-foot height requirement.
So the plate height is typically 8 feet at the second floor.
Or it might need to be lower to meet that, but I think I've got it drawn at 8 feet. That's
good.
Okay, so let's
Actually, it looks like it's lower. Because see, there's 8 feet. Right?
Yeah, it's gonna vary a little bit.
Yeah. So you're going to be down at 7 feet. Yeah, you're going to be down at 7 feet at the edges to get. Right? Other questions? Okay, let's go to comments. And it only can have comments, so we just need to make comments and decide whether or not the applicant needs to return addressing those comments or whether he can proceed to his coastal review and other requirements.
I think that it's really charming architecture. It's very nicely done. I think it would be a lovely addition to the neighborhood, personally. I'm appreciative of the 85% FAR. Oops. And I'm also appreciative of turning on the light. So I can support this project. I think it's nice. I have some trepidation about the second story over the garage, but since it's so far back, I'd like to see what my fellow board members have to say about that.
Okay. Other comments?
Yeah, I have comments. I like the style of the architecture, but I think the layout's kind of strange. I don't know. Can I see
the floor plan?
No, the elevations.
Okay.
I like to see a little more symmetry. This is an awkward setup here. I don't know what this going on here, and then this is something very awkward. I don't know if I can support a second story on the garage in the back. I'm kind of on the roof about that. So I think, and then the front here, there's some work about symmetry that could be worked on a little bit. It's just a little, it's funky. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay. Other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We've talked about this Marine Terrace neighborhood many times, and it was the poster child for our whole board and all of the guidelines that we have. And in my opinion, I can appreciate the style, but I think there's too much building for the lot. I think the FAR needs to be corrected. I think the numbers are not accurate, at least from my calculations, and I've done them twice. I think that the amount of decking on both sides, and then the front deck or porch or patio isn't compatible. It's too much. The spiral staircase is not compatible. I don't think that fits the neighborhood character. So I really don't think it meets our guidelines. The accessory building above the garage adds a lot more building to the lot, and I think it's too much.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Okay, I'll weigh in if anyone else has comments. I'm too concerned about the second floor element on the garage, and the reason I'm concerned about that second floor element is, having had the opportunity to go in the back with the owner, is I'm concerned that the house immediately to the other side, let me get to the other photograph, this house here in this backyard is going to have a problem, because even though there's a little bit of an incline and this house does sit up from that house, I think by adding the second floor it presents a problem of views, etc. Not views, but privacy issues, and between the two properties. And so I could kind of support a second floor up here, but I think it all has to be lowered. One of the things that happens in garages is, sometimes you can get away with an 8-foot or 7-foot ceiling in a garage because cars aren't that high. But I think there's a way to play this, to move that down, to get the plate heights in the second floor dropped dramatically down to like 7 feet, given the tall roof element here. I don't really have a problem with the general configuration of what he's proposing. One of the things in walking that street, we just reviewed, I think it was our last meeting, we reviewed a house, I think 3 or 4 houses up on that side of the street.
Right across the street almost.
It's like right up here. Yeah. And we've reviewed some others on this street over the last several years. So I think the general approach is okay, but I think the house still sits too tall. And I was just looking at the decks, because one of the things in looking at this neighbor, as Ms. Bernstein points out to us, continually looking at this neighborhood, everybody wants decks. They want decks all over the place. So on this street, we got decks everywhere. If you walk up and down the street, everybody's got decks. So one of the things that I would think would be important is minimizing the size of this front deck on the front street. Right now it's 9 feet, more or less, clear to the railing. I think that could be brought back considerably so that it accommodates a couple of sitting chairs, but I don't think it needs to be that large to accommodate, tables and all that kind of stuff. I think the rear deck is probably okay, given the inset from the property lines, given that it's down, etc. I kind of agree with my colleague about this. I don't really care for spiral staircases, but that's my own pet peeve. That's why I was kind of looking at, is there another way to do the stairs without having to have that one? I don't really think that's necessary, but that's my own personal view, because it's just incongruous to the rest of the architecture. So if you buy off on that deck, then you bought this deck because it's basically covering that deck. So I don't have a big problem with that. I do have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the front porch, because it's the front porch. And there's a house on Upper State Street in my neighborhood that has a big porch like this, and it actually sets the foreground for the house and helps it give scale as it approaches the street. Mm-hmm. The other thing that happens, if you've gone out and looked at it, when you stand over here looking up the driveway, and this gets to Lisa's concern, when you see that building in the back, because it's shoved way back and because this is higher than that point, when you're standing out here, it really does diminish the size of that thing. So I think a combination of lowering that second floor on the garage, lowering the garage itself will get it down, and then I think the impact from the streetscape really does get, because of the position of this lot compared to that lot compared to that lot, it gets it all to sit down. So I think, in my view, if you can find a way to get that second floor on the garage down, get the garage roof, get that whole thing dropped down, then I think it might be okay. But that's my concern. Other comments?
Well, I think that, I don't understand. I mean, and if I don't see why people can't have decks. I mean, as long as they're within our guidelines and they're 15 feet back from the...
And I don't disagree.
Yeah.
As I said, it's just the front deck I think ought to be smaller. The other decks are
Well,
fine.
you mean like the porch? Because it's
No, just the...
Oh, the one on the second story.
Yeah, just up there. I think that could be smaller.
Yeah.
I think this.
But other than that,
This board looks at deck, and if you put deck everywhere, they're saying first thing
That's
they
why I
say.
would bring them into the middle of the space.
No, they always say you got too many decks.
It's like,
Eliminate
it's
the word
California.
deck.
It's
Take
Southern
deck
California. We want to be outside. It's
Yeah,
like,
but I agree with
It's the whole
my,
idea.
I agree with my colleague. I think this front deck off the master bedroom upstairs is probably not even necessary. I don't even think
it
it'll
could
be
be made
used.
to be more intimate off a master. It doesn't need to be that big.
It probably won't even be used.
Hold on. But anyway.
That's my comment. And the front porch, you need a front porch, but the front porch could be not a deck. It could be a porch, and it's a much smaller thing.
You've got to be at 10 inches. You're not going to be a deck.
Yeah.
You're going to be a
You're going to be
terrace or a porch.
You're going to be a porch. Call it a call it what it is. It's a
I'm
porch.
buying into that porch.
Yeah. And the spiral staircase. Lots of times we look at spiral staircases and we don't think they match the rest of the architecture. Put something there that matches the rest of the architecture. If you want to go from that upper master bedroom deck and use the back bedroom or back yard together, you put something there that matches the architecture. There's just a few little things that need to be. Yeah, you could. I think the board likes the architecture, and Mr. Sweeney has summed up that. The two buildings. We could lower the back building. It would fit the masses of the.
It's got to drain out, so I can lower the second floor, but I really can't lower.
No.
the
I don't mean lower. I mean lower the height of it, not into the ground. It's got to drain out.
Well, the other concern I have, and you can work it out with a second-story garage, is because you're in a high-density neighborhood. When you have a garage in the back and you have a second story, it's peering down in the yard.
Well, it's got one 18 by 18-inch window in it.
Yeah.
The back, right there. It's barely enough. That's the only window it's got back there.
But your also neighbors are looking at a monumental building.
Yeah, well, I was going to say this might look better. Do you have any hips? It might look better if you had a hip there, or if you changed the gable going the other way, going north and south instead of east and west.
So I thought the gable running that way provided a slimmer profile to the house behind it.
Well, it makes it look higher. If you look up the driveway, you're looking at a gable there, and it makes it look.
Yeah, you might explore switching.
Yeah.
How about some plantings back there? Oh, and I see there's power lines across the back.
Yeah, so you might explore changing it.
Yeah, and there is a power line easement,
and bring
so those don't go away.
Bring this
Can you plant into a power line easement at all? You
No,
can't.
you're not supposed to.
Yeah, there's an easement there.
PG&E or Edison will come out and trim it all back.
Plant something that's not
Yeah.
Oh, well,
One
the
of
whole
the-
idea is to mitigate the height of the second story on the garage from the neighbor's view. To have something green to look at instead. There is a little sliver here that isn't in the easement.
We can
stick something in there.
Can't you plant an easement? I think you can plant an easement out,
You
right?
can, but you can't. The tree planting, Edison is going to come and
Just get a tree that.
cut them all out.
They're subject to their discretion.
Yeah, they're subject to discretion.
But if you got one that just tops at a certain height, then at least you've got a green buffer between the neighbor and that, and then I think the second story on the garage.
If your applicant has already indicated he's going to plant a hedge on that one property line to do his privacy, he might consider doing something.
Yeah, he could do a
there.
hedge.
Do a hedge. So one of my questions to my landscape colleagues is when a motion is made, we should probably indicate one way or the other of what the scope of the landscaping that we're looking for.
I think a whole
Yeah, I think so. That was my intention. Okay.
Okay. Any further comments?
I like it. I like the design, and I like the kind of a Cape Cod beach.
Yeah, there's 3 houses just up that are all they're all going to be in the same vocabulary. Okay, Chair would look for a motion. This just needs a motion with comments and he's got to proceed to deal with stormwater and coastal review. And we'll need some indication coming back, full board consent, et cetera. Anybody ready to make a motion?
I'll try to make a motion, Mr. Chair. And before I do that, I'd just like to appreciate Brian. I think Brian has made some really important comments tonight, including it's not about our personal, I like it, I don't like it.
Exactly.
It's not really appropriate to even say that. It's not about us, it's about the design. And Brian also called this a high-density neighborhood. And that ties into the thing about the deck. We all love decks and we want to enjoy the Mesa day on the deck, but if everybody has 2 or 3 decks sticking out too far in a high-density neighborhood and second stories, it's going to change the whole character. So I would like to make a motion to continue the project to return to the full board with the following comments. The board appreciates the style of the architecture and is willing to consider the accessory building over the garage, provided that it's reduced in its height and impact on the neighborhood, possibly with some landscaping. We'd like you to study the front patio and reduce that, and maybe it'll become a deck or it might be called something else. Bring in an accurate FAR, bring in a landscaping plan, and try to study the height of the overall house and see if you can reduce that so that the FAR is 85% and the house is reduced in its height.
Okay, that's your motion. Does the maker of the motion want to make any specific comment about the deck off their master bedroom on the second floor?
Yes, we'd like to see that deck studied and possibly reduced or even removed. Oh, and we don't really think that the spiral staircase is compatible with the neighborhood.
Okay, so that's your motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, there is a second. I got Joe. I heard Joe first.
Okay,
so
Joe
let it go.
I was louder.
That's it. Any further discussion to the motion
Is
on the
there
floor?
anything to add to the...
I think you got it all, Vern.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion to the item on the floor? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Is there any further business before the board today? Seeing none, the chair will call for adjournment. Turn your microphones on.
All right. Good direction. Appreciate it.